3 years ago, Ja Sung, our main character, went to a remote, desolate area and bought up all the land for cheap. His plan? Build houses and make a killing. Among the properties he acquired was the home of our female lead, Young Won. She was renting the place at a low price, completely unaware that her landlord had already sold it to Ja Sung and pocketed her security deposit. One morning, Young Won woke up to a crew of movers barging into her house, tossing her belongings around, and trying to evict her. She pleaded with them, begging to stay just one more night because she had nowhere else to go. But her pleas fell on deaf ears. They were relentless, even trying to force her out physically. Just as Young Won was struggling against them, Ja Sung arrived. He ordered his men to release her, and then, surprisingly, took her out for a nice meal. Young Won was overflowing with gratitude, thinking he was being genuinely helpful. Little did she know, he'd only taken her to lunch so his crew could clear out her belongings faster. When the truth dawned on her, Young Won was furious. She marched right up to Ja Sung and let him have it, unleashing a flurry of punches and even throwing the bag of boiled meat he'd bought her right in his face. And just like that, a bitter rivalry was born. That evening, Young Won sat dejectedly in her car, staring at her piled-up belongings. Utterly lost and with no place to go, she ended up renting a cheap, dingy, and dark little place. Stepping inside, she took one look around and sighed. Just then, her mother called, asking how she was doing. Not wanting to worry her, Young Won lied, telling her mom everything was fine, determined to make the best of a bad situation. Young Won rolled up her sleeves and got to work. She cleaned, decorated, and transformed the gloomy space into a cozy and inviting room. But a bigger problem loomed. She was running out of money. Young Won started reaching out to everyone she knew, desperately asking for job leads. 3 agonizing months went by, and still, nothing. Then, one day, her phone rang. A company wanted to interview her. Overjoyed, Young Won excitedly headed to the office. It turned out that her former colleague, Yui Ju, a seasoned editor, had pulled some strings and recommended her for a position at her company, Monthly Home Magazine. The editor-in-chief hired Young Won on the spot, without even an interview. Young Won was surprised but didn't question it. She was just relieved to have a job finally. The editor-in-chief gave Young Won a tour of the office, introducing her to her new colleagues. Suddenly, Ja Sung walked in. As it turned out, he was the magazine's new owner. To boost his real estate ventures, he'd bought the publication to write glowing articles about the properties he was developing. A clever marketing strategy. Almost immediately, Young Won was assigned to work with Ja Sung, scouting properties. He took her to see the houses she'd be writing about, and Young Won was awestruck by their sheer luxury and opulence. Later, they met with a homeowner to discuss a project. During the meeting, it became painfully clear that Young Won lacked even basic real estate knowledge, which infuriated Ja Sung. He criticized her, questioning how she could possibly write compelling articles with her current skill set. He then threatened to fire her if she didn't quickly learn the ropes of real estate and produce a decent article. Young Won was deeply offended by his condescending attitude. She'd applied for an editor position, not to write fluff pieces about real estate. It felt humiliating for someone with her 10 years of experience. Yui Ju explained that Ja Sung's abrasive personality was the reason 5 people had already quit the seemingly simple job. They simply couldn't stand working with him. It turned out the editor-in-chief had hired Young Won on the spot out of desperation. He just needed someone, anyone, who could tolerate Ja Sung. Young Won sighed, contemplating her uncertain future. But the thought of the paycheck spurred her on. She decided to grit her teeth and endure. Back at the office, she buried herself in real estate basics. Suddenly, Ja Sung received a call and told Young Won to come with him. He took her to see his younger, adopted brother, Gyeom, who was camping by a stream. Just as Gyeom was taking a picture, Ja Sung popped into the frame. Startled, Gyeom bolted, with Ja Sung hot on his heels. Their friend, Jang Chan, grabbed the camera and followed, documenting the chase. The scene descended into utter chaos. Ja Sung yelled for someone to catch him. Hearing Ja Sung's shouts, Young Won rushed over to help apprehend Gyeom. But in her haste, she tripped over a rock and tumbled right into him. The impact left a perfect imprint of her makeup on Gyeom's shirt. Later, the 4 of them returned to the office. Young Won and Gyeom were tasked with unpacking Ja Sung's things. While unpacking, Young Won hummed a song about real estate jargon. Gyeom found her amusing. Young Won explained she was cramming because Ja Sung had chewed her out. Gyeom reassured her, saying that he'd known Ja Sung for a long time, and that while he was a grump, he was actually a good guy. Young Won laughed, saying she'd try to tolerate his prickly personality. When they returned to the office, they stumbled upon Yui Ju in a heated argument with a colleague. Young Won quickly explained to Gyeom that they were usually like family, only getting snappy when deadlines loomed. She then calmly settled down to write her article. Young Won submitted her draft to Ja Sung, but no matter how many times she rewrote it, he was never satisfied. He repeatedly tossed her work in the trash, criticizing her inefficiency. The editor-in-chief and her colleagues watched from afar, worried that she wouldn't last long under Ja Sung's relentless pressure. But Yui Ju countered, saying she knew Young Won well. She had an incredibly high tolerance for hardship and wouldn't give up easily. Yui Ju recounted some of Young Won's past work experiences. Once, as a fashion assistant, Young Won had to chop off her hair and step in for a model who didn't show up for a fashion show. Another time, while on a mountain photo shoot, she carried heavy equipment, endured scrapes and bruises from a fall, but still managed to protect the expensive designer scarf the model was wearing. Later, while working as a production assistant for a restaurant shoot, she was warned not to place anything hot directly on the expensive marble countertop. Just as the warning was given, another crew member came over and was about to put a hot pan on the marble. Without hesitation, Young Won shielded the countertop with her hand, suffering a severe burn. Compared to everything Young Won had endured, Ja Sung's harsh words were nothing. She wasn't going anywhere. The editor-in-chief was impressed. He'd been searching for someone with that kind of resilience. Just then, a dejected Young Won emerged from Ja Sung's office. Her colleagues gave her encouraging thumbs-ups. Young Won returned to her desk and continued working on the draft late into the night. As she typed, she grumbled about Ja Sung being a terrible boss. Just then he walked by. Young Won quickly deleted what she'd written. Ja Sung told her to leave the draft on her desk. He was going home. Watching him leave, Young Won breathed a sigh of relief. She wiped off her heavy makeup and changed into comfortable clothes to continue working. Finally, she finished the draft and hit print. As she walked towards the printer, she realized Ja Sung had returned to the office to retrieve his wallet. Panicked, Young Won hid behind the printer, hoping to avoid him. But Ja Sung noticed her computer screen was still on. As he went to turn it off, he spotted her hiding. Young Won tried to cover her face with a piece of paper, but Ja Sung ripped it away, recognizing her as the woman who'd thrown the bag of boiled meat at him. Young Won begged him not to fire her, promising to work hard to make amends. Ja Sung sarcastically questioned how someone who'd been scammed out of their rent money could write about real estate. He then gave her the nickname, Penniless Dung. Young Won was furious, but forced herself to swallow her anger. She needed the money. Back in her tiny apartment, she ate instant noodles while complaining about her difficult boss. She also worried about losing her job. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. She checked the message and was overjoyed to see that her draft had finally been approved. Relieved, she continued eating. Suddenly, she dropped a pot on the floor. It started moving. Thinking she was dreaming, Young Won flipped it over to reveal a rat. She screamed and ran around her apartment in terror. After a while of chasing, the mouse finally left. The next morning, Young Won stared blankly at the published magazine, a sense of dissatisfaction washing over her. Her colleagues praised her work, but she couldn't bring herself to feel happy. This wasn't the kind of work she wanted to be doing. She turned to Yui Ju and suggested they grab drinks after work. Yui Ju readily agreed, encouraging Young Won to push through this rough patch. Better times and the work she truly desired were just around the corner. Young Won nodded, grateful to at least have a job, unlike before. Just then, Ja Sung walked in. The editor-in-chief suggested a celebratory dinner for the successful magazine launch. To everyone's surprise, Ja Sung agreed to treat them. Jaws dropped. This was unprecedented. The excited editor-in-chief asked where they should go. Ja Sung replied that anything was fine, as long as it wasn't boiled meat, shooting a pointed look at Young Won, a clear reminder of their past encounter. Young Won bristled but kept her cool. That evening, the entire office gathered at a restaurant. Everyone eagerly grabbed menus, ready to order. Suddenly, Ja Sung announced a spending limit of 30,000 won per person. This meant everyone could only afford one main dish and a bottle of soju. Ja Sung justified his frugality by saying they should eat moderately to avoid impacting their work the next day. He even imposed a 2-hour time limit on the dinner. Young Won went to the restroom. Upon returning, she overheard Ja Sung talking to someone from the head office on the phone. She approached him, asking about the feedback on her article. Ja Sung admitted that the head office was pleased, but only because he'd told her exactly what to write. He then snidely remarked that her previous drafts were terrible, and that she could have saved everyone time if she'd listened to him from the beginning. Young Won seethed but held her tongue. They returned to the table. Young Won finished her soju and ordered another. The editor-in-chief reminded her of the 30,000 won limit. Young Won calmly stated she would cover the extra cost herself. Ja Sung, never missing an opportunity to needle her, called her penniless in front of everyone. Young Won, remarkably, remained composed. After dinner, everyone grumbled about Ja Sung's stinginess, complaining they weren't full. Meanwhile, Young Won, having had an extra bottle of soju, was completely drunk. Ju suggested that Ja Sung take Young Won home. Before he could respond, everyone else scattered, eager to avoid the task. Young Won got into Ja Sung's car, then suddenly declared she wanted a taxi and stumbled out. She wandered around for a bit before getting back into his car. Resigned, Ja Sung started driving, though he had no idea where she lived. A while later, Young Won came to, realizing she was in Ja Sung's car. She quickly got out and walked the rest of the way home herself. As Young Won walked down the narrow alleyway to her apartment, she sensed someone following her. Fear gripped her, and she hurried towards her door. It turned out to be just her next-door neighbor. Breathing a sigh of relief, she entered her apartment, only to find an intruder inside. He covered her mouth and threatened her, but luckily, Ja Sung appeared just in time and rescued her. They went to the police station to report the incident. The intruder turned out to be the landlord's son, who had clearly intended to harm Young Won. Shockingly, the landlord defended his son, blaming Young Won and evicting her on the spot. Young Won defiantly declared she wouldn't stay in that awful place another minute anyway. But the moment they stepped out of the police station, the fear caught up to her, and she collapsed, sobbing. She cried to Ja Sung, lamenting her constant struggles despite her best efforts. Why, with so many houses in the world, did she not have one to call her own? She had nowhere to go. Moved by her plight, Ja Sung offered her a vacant apartment he owned, telling her she could stay there and even waive the security deposit. Young Won realized that beneath his gruff exterior, Ja Sung had a kind heart. Overwhelmed with gratitude, she finally had a place to call home, even if temporarily. Young Won had always dreamed of having her own space, a sanctuary where she could unwind after a long day. Life was a constant struggle, and home was the only place she could truly be herself. After settling Young Won in, Ja Sung returned to his own large, luxurious, yet sparsely furnished apartment. The only prominent piece of furniture was a large bed. Back at Ja Sung's apartment, Young Won was watching one of his videos when someone started repeatedly trying to enter the passcode for the front door. Terrified, she feared another attacker, but it was only the building security guard. He explained he'd come to check on the apartment after hearing noises, as it had been vacant for a while. He peered inside inquisitively, reminding Young Won to lock up before bed. Young Won, puzzled but calm, returned to watching Ja Sung's video. In the video, Ja Sung shared his secrets to success, from starting with nothing to becoming a prominent real estate CEO. He explained his routine of personally scouting potential investment locations early each morning, carefully assessing their appeal and ensuring they would attract buyers. A good location, he emphasized, needed to be near schools and subway stations, offering convenience to residents. This, he believed, was key to attracting buyers. After his scouting trips, Ja Sung would return to the office. Walking in one day, he found Young Won singing and cleaning. He asked why. Young Won explained she wanted to express her gratitude for letting her rent the apartment without a deposit. Ja Sung brushed her off, telling her to just pay the rent on time and stop with the nonsense. Young Won excitedly told Ju that she'd moved into one of Ja Sung's apartments, and he hadn't even asked for a deposit. Ju was skeptical, finding it hard to believe Ja Sung would be so generous, especially with money. He was notoriously stingy, and as it turned out, there was something definitely off about the apartment Ja Sung had rented to Young Won. The security guard called Ja Sung to confirm that Young Won was indeed renting the unit. Ja Sung confirmed, mentioning she'd only be staying for a short while. The guard mused that she must be unaware of the rumors surrounding the apartment. Otherwise, no one would willingly live there. Young Won happily decorated her new place. It was comfortable and spacious, a welcome change from her previous cramped and dark lodgings. Relaxing on her bed, she watched Ja Sung's video on tips for buying your apartment. He emphasized the importance of frugality, advising viewers to cut down on unnecessary expenses. Inspired, Young Won started listing her expenses, determined to buy her place. From that day forward, she vowed to avoid frivolous spending. The next morning, Young Won considered grabbing a coffee before work, but remembered Ja Sung's advice against wasteful spending. He'd pointed out that the cost of daily coffee could add up to a significant 1.46 million won annually. Thinking of this, she decided to skip the coffee. Later, she was about to withdraw money from an ATM, but recalled Ja Sung's tip about avoiding ATM fees, which could save 1,200 won per transaction. So she went to the bank, opened an account, and withdrew the money there. At work, Ju tempted her with a 50% off sale, but each time Young Won was about to click buy, Ja Sung's mantra of save money echoed in her mind, and she reluctantly refrained. She went to Guillaume's office to discuss a draft, and found him setting a timer to snag a limited edition tent for 1.2 million won. To make matters worse, he'd also splurged on 2 nearly identical chairs, differing only in color, and they looked remarkably ordinary. It seemed he had just as much trouble saving money as she did. After work, as Young Won was leaving, she saw Guillaume heading out in an expensive sports car. She advised him, as a young person, to be more financially responsible and avoid such extravagant spending. Little did she know, Guillaume came from a very wealthy family. His father had even asked Ja Sung to buy him an expensive house, but Guillaume preferred staying at the company's office. Learning about Young Won's saving goals, Guillaume understood her earlier advice. He smiled, finding her frugality endearing. Sang Soon, one of Young Won's colleagues, had miraculously won a lottery for a multi-million won apartment. A fortune teller had advised him not to shower, change clothes, or complain, and to express gratitude to everyone around him to increase his chances of winning. He followed the advice to a T. The next day, a grimy Sang Soon arrived at the office, handing out boxes of ginseng to everyone. He bragged delusionally about his imminent acquisition of a multi-million won apartment. Just a few more days, he boasted, and he'd be rich, living happily ever after with his girlfriend in their new home. Everyone seemed accustomed to these displays, except for Young Won, who witnessed this spectacle for the first time. Yui Ju tried to warn Young Won against drinking the ginseng, unsure of its quality. But it was too late. Young Won had already downed most of it. Later, Young Won joined Ja Sung, Guillaume, and Jang Chan on a work trip to Manchu, a mountainous region, with fresh, crisp air, seemingly ideal for living. Young Won was captivated by the blend of traditional and modern architecture, fueling her dream of owning a similar house. She diligently took photos for her article. At lunch, Young Won stuffed herself, hoping to save money by skipping dinner. Ja Sung, Guillaume, and Jang Chan were taken aback by her voracious appetite. Young Won complimented the homeowner's kimchi, and the pleased homeowner offered them a large portion to take home. Young Won was thrilled, anticipating the money she'd save on food. But this seemingly fortunate turn of events would soon lead to trouble. On the drive back, Young Won and Ja Sung were distracted by the road and didn't notice an oncoming car. Ja Sung swerved, jolting the car, and the container of kimchi in the back flew open, splattering its contents everywhere, including on them. Ja Sung was about to explode at Young Won, but Guillaume intervened. Guillaume then drove Young Won home while Ja Sung went to get his car cleaned. Back at her apartment, Young Won regretted taking the kimchi. While it promised to save her money, it had caused a huge mess. She recorded her savings for the day in her notebook, and then texted an apology to Ja Sung. However, the message that reached Ja Sung was a bizarre threat. "You will die by my hand." Confused, Ja Sung reread the message, but it remained the same. The following day, a dejected Sang Soon returned to work, having lost the lottery. He went around collecting the ginseng he'd given out. Everyone, accustomed to his antics, hadn't consumed any, except for Young Won, who, unaware, had already had several servings. Sang Soon demanded payment from Young Won. She was horrified. She was diligently saving to buy a house and now faced this unexpected expense. After careful consideration, she decided not to pay. She texted Sang Soon, explaining her financial difficulties and offering him the remaining ginseng instead. Sang Soon was furious, accusing her of being inconsiderate. But after hearing Wei Ju recount Young Won's struggles, he relented, deciding to gift her the ginseng after all. The editor-in-chief, surprised by Sang Soon's change of heart, texted him, asking just how pitiful Young Won's situation was to cause such a dramatic shift in his attitude. Sang Soon intended to reply to the editor-in-chief, but accidentally sent the message to Young Won. After reading it, Young Won felt embarrassed and hurt, quickly making an excuse to leave. Later, Young Won was at a studio for a product photo shoot. During the shoot, Mai Ra, Young Won's assistant, climbed a ladder to hang a decorative painting. She lost her balance and fell. Young Won rushed to catch her, while another colleague grabbed the painting. It seemed like a close call. Suddenly, a rolled-up mat near Young Won fell and knocked into a cart. The cart then collided with a table holding a small alcohol lamp, which tipped over and landed on an expensive sofa, setting it ablaze. The entire crew stood frozen, watching in horror as the million-won sofa burned. Mira frantically apologized to Young Won, saying she couldn't afford to replace the expensive sofa as a new employee. Young Won comforted her, taking full responsibility for the incident. When Ja Sung found out, he was furious. He berated Young Won, calling her incompetent and demanding she apologize to the sponsor and compensate them for the full cost of the sofa. Young Won quietly accepted the blame, without revealing that Mira was actually responsible. She truly was kind-hearted. After being reprimanded, Young Won carried the charred sofa home alone. While moving it, she accidentally stubbed her toe against it. In that moment, all her pent-up frustration and exhaustion came pouring out. She sank to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. The first bit of savings she'd painstakingly accumulated had gone up in smoke, and now she was facing a mountain of debt. Jaeom, feeling for Young Won, pleaded with Ja-sung to forgive her, but Ja-sung insisted she deserved the consequences. Unable to stay silent any longer, Jaeom revealed that Mai-ra was responsible for the accident, and that Young Won had taken the blame to protect her junior colleague. Despite her hardships, she had a heart of gold. Ja-sung was stunned. He couldn't believe someone struggling financially would be so selfless. Later, back at the office, he noticed Young Won's computer was still on. As he went to turn it off, he saw a blog post she'd written. In the post, Young Won lamented turning 30 without owning a home. She shared her difficult family background. Her parents had divorced early, her father had passed away, and her mother was bedridden, leaving her to shoulder all the burdens alone. Reading her words, Ja-sung realized they shared similar backgrounds. He felt a pang of empathy. Ja-sung's childhood had been far from idyllic. Orphaned at a young age, he'd been reluctantly taken in by relatives, who resented him and eventually kicked him out. Everything he'd achieved was through his own hard work and determination. Ja-sung fell silent, a wave of complex emotions washing over him. Meanwhile, Sang-soon was also struggling. His failure to win the apartment lottery hit him hard. It wasn't his first attempt, and he wept quietly in his office, feeling defeated by his inability to afford a home. His desperation stemmed from his girlfriend's mother's disapproval. She looked down on him for not owning a home, and was pressuring her daughter to leave him for someone wealthier. It seemed everyone longed for a home of their own, yet they all faced seemingly insurmountable financial obstacles. Just as Young Won was nearing despair, Ja-sung messaged her, saying the company would cover the cost of the damaged sofa. Young Won shrieked with joy, finally free from the crushing burden of debt. She happily headed to a convenience store for dinner, but even choosing instant noodles was a challenge with her limited budget. She considered the cheapest option, a buy one get one deal, but realized she couldn't eat 2 servings. She wondered if she should splurge on a single, slightly more expensive cup. As she deliberated, Jaeom appeared and offered to take the second cup, allowing them both to save money. Young Won readily agreed, unaware that Jaeom, who was actually quite wealthy, was simply looking for an excuse to spend time with her. He proposed they become convenience store partners, sharing buy one get one deals to save money, but his real motive was to see her more often. Young Won, oblivious, happily accepted. After their meal, Young Won returned home. As she was tying her hair, the band snapped. Out of habit, she almost threw it away, but her newfound frugality kicked in. She couldn't bear to waste it. With some clever maneuvering, she managed to retie the broken band. Later, she excitedly wrote down her savings plan, convinced that with enough discipline, she would soon achieve her dream of homeownership. However, the calculations painted a bleak picture. Even with stringent saving, it would take at least 20 years to reach her goal. It felt impossibly distant. Seeking further ways to save, Young Won revisited Ja-sung's videos. He'd recommended creating a personalized calendar to track expenses, aiming for a daily spending limit of 10,000 Young Won followed suit, meticulously crafting a fabric calendar with clearly marked daily savings goals. Proud of her creation, she posted a picture of it on an online forum for aspiring homeowners. Ja-sung, using an anonymous account, commented, praising her efforts. Encouraged, Young Won felt a renewed sense of purpose. With a clear goal and a plan, she felt confident she could one day own her dream home. The next day, Young Won arrived at work in high spirits, surprising her colleagues, who knew about her substantial debt. She explained that Ja-sung had agreed to cover the cost using company funds, relieving her of the burden. Everyone was astonished. This act of generosity was completely out of character for the notoriously stingy Ja-sung. That morning, during a brief company meeting, Ja-sung proposed adding an advertisement for Hong Kong medicine to the upcoming monthly magazine as a way to generate more revenue. The editor-in-chief tried to object, explaining that the magazine layout was meticulously planned and already full, with no space for additional ads. Moreover, he argued, a Hong Kong medicine ad felt out of place in their publication. But Ja-sung was adamant. The content of the magazine was secondary to maximizing profit. He even threatened to fire the editor-in-chief for insubordination. Defeated, the editor-in-chief had no choice but to comply. He decided to cut a portion of Yuiju's article, much to her dismay. To soothe Yuiju's bruised ego, the editor-in-chief suggested Young Won treat everyone to coffee. After all, she was now debt-free, so a small celebration was in order. This put Young Won in a difficult position. Treating everyone to coffee wasn't part of her savings plan. She'd committed to spending less than 10,000 won a day, but coffee for the entire office would cost well over 20,001. Ja Sung, noticing Young Won's distress, decided to intervene. He stepped forward, brandishing his black card, and announced he'd cover the coffee. Everyone was stunned. Ju found Ja Sung's recent generosity perplexing. He'd been acting strangely out of character, and she suspected Young Won was the reason. At lunchtime, Young Won and Guillaume went to the convenience store. Initially, she opted for a budget-friendly rice ball, but Guillaume suggested they get the buy one get one lunchboxes, which were on sale. Young Won eagerly agreed, letting Guillaume handle the payment. Unbeknownst to her, Guillaume had secretly switched the price tags and paid the full amount, ensuring Young Won enjoyed a good meal without breaking the bank. He smiled, watching her eat contentedly. Catching his gaze, Young Won felt a pang of self-consciousness. She explained her need to save for a house. Guillaume, understanding, revealed his own dream of becoming a photographer. Young Won expressed her admiration for his passion, saying it was wonderful that he'd found his calling. Her words were unexpectedly encouraging for Guillaume, whose dream had often been met with disapproval. Back at the office, the editor-in-chief suggested Young Won treat everyone to drinks after work. Young Won awkwardly agreed, internally panicking as this further derailed her savings plan. In the restroom, she debated how to get out of it, eventually deciding to feign either a lost wallet or a stomachache. However, both attempts failed miserably, as her resourceful colleagues found solutions for each predicament. Stuck, Young Won posted on the money-saving forum, pleading for help. Ja Sung, seeing her post, rushed back to the office. In his haste, he couldn't devise a proper plan, and resorted to making up an excuse for Young Won to stay late and search for a document. Young Won was secretly delighted. The after-work drinks were off, but her colleagues, ever resourceful, decided to stay and help her find the document. They quickly located it, excitedly urging Young Won to head to the bar. Young Won sighed, resigned to her fate. There was no escape this time. Just as they were about to leave, Ja Sung reappeared, claiming they needed to find one more document, a magazine featuring a house shaped like a dog. He thought this would be a difficult task, but the editor-in-chief quickly found it, high up on a shelf. Reaching for it, he wobbled, knocking into the adjacent bookshelf. Bookshelves began toppling like dominoes. Everyone scrambled to safety, except for Young Won, trapped at the back. Ja Sung rushed forward, bracing himself against the falling shelves to shield her. However, to his embarrassment, the shelves stopped short of crushing him, halted by a wall. Mortified, Ja Sung extracted himself from the awkward situation. Undeterred, everyone was ready to head out again. Ja Sung argued against drinking, citing its potential impact on their work the next day. His colleagues promised to drink in moderation. Left with no other options, Ja Sung declared that future social gatherings required his presence. Since he couldn't join them that night, the gathering was cancelled. Everyone thought he was acting strangely, but didn't dare to challenge him. Sighing and heading home, Young Won walked home with Ju. Along the way, Ju declared, based on her sixth sense, that Ja Sung had a crush on Young Won. He'd been going out of his way to help her. Young Won laughed, dismissing it as Ju's imagination. Ju countered, pointing out Ja Sung's drastic change in behavior since Young Won arrived. He seemed determined to keep her out of trouble, which couldn't be a coincidence. Furthermore, renting her an apartment without a deposit was a clear sign of his affection. Young Won tried to steer the conversation back to her saving goals. Ju offered to help, but then playfully teased Young Won by slathering a generous amount of her favorite expensive lotion all over her arms and legs. Young Won could only sigh. The next morning, Ja Sung was scouting locations for a new development project. He visited an old apartment complex, assessing its future potential. He decided to renovate it, seeing significant development opportunities. Suddenly, he sensed someone watching him. He turned around to find Guillaume taking photos for him. To capture Ja Sung in his element, Guillaume discreetly hid, snapping candid shots. He knew Ja Sung was always self-conscious in front of the camera. Ja Sung reviewed the photos, praising Guillaume's skills, and offered him a photography position at the company. Guillaume declined, explaining his plans to return to the US for further studies. Ja Sung was puzzled. Why would Guillaume pursue further education abroad? Guillaume simply stated it was his dream. Guillaume then teased Ja Sung about finding love, pointing out he was of marrying age. Ja Sung dismissed the idea, declaring money was his only love. Back at the office, while reviewing photos, Guillaume stumbled upon one of Young Won yawning. Jang Chan, peering over his shoulder, deemed it a bad photo, but Guillaume found it adorable. Meanwhile, Ja Sung returned from another scouting trip to his luxurious but empty apartment. His secretary suggested furnishing it, but Ja Sung refused, explaining he intended to sell the place soon and didn't want to waste money. That night, both Ja Sung and Young Won, unable to sleep, browsed the money-saving forum. Young Won posted a message thanking her company's CEO for helping her avoid a difficult situation. She admitted she'd initially perceived him as heartless and obsessed with money, but now realized he was genuinely kind. Ja Sung, reading her post, was delighted. He left a comment, encouraging her to continue saving diligently, but his joy was short-lived. He received another threatening message from the mysterious sender, his expression darkening with worry. The next day, during a team meeting, Young Won suggested an article about the potential of urban renewal in older apartment complexes. The editor-in-chief immediately shot down the idea, scolding Young Won for her foolish suggestion. Yui Ju explained that urban renewal was a sensitive topic for him. His wife had always wanted to buy an apartment in an older complex, hoping for urban renewal and a quick increase in property value. However, the area remained underdeveloped and impoverished, dashing their hopes. Young Won understood his reaction, but was curious about another quirk. Why did the editor-in-chief always walk on tiptoe? Yui Ju explained it was a habit. At home, his wife constantly shushed him, worried about disturbing their 2 children, who were studying for exams. This constant tiptoeing around had become ingrained. Young Won realized he was a devoted family man. After the meeting, Young Won met with Gyeom to discuss the latest product photos. They chatted amicably, encouraging each other. As Young Won left, Jang Chan, who had been eavesdropping, sat up, convinced that Gyeom had a crush on Young Won. He even figured out Gyeom's scheme of feigning poverty to get closer to her. Gyeom, flustered, warned Jang Chan not to breathe a word of his crush to Young Won. Young Won accompanied Ja Sung to a new house for a feature. Before entering, Ja Sung reminded her to make a good impression, as this was a high-stakes project. Young Won nodded, mentally reviewing real estate jargon. Inside, the homeowner gave them a tour. Young Won was impressed by the luxurious amenities, all tailored to her husband's preferences. She expressed her admiration, commenting on how much the homeowner must love her husband. But upon seeing the husband, Young Won's expression turned to shock. It was her ex-boyfriend, the one who dumped her 5 years earlier for being poor. Back then, despite her own struggles, she'd always packed him lunch, paid for their meals, clothes, and even his transportation. He'd ultimately betrayed her, marrying a woman more than 10 years his senior. Young Won seethed, remembering the past. She realized he'd been two-timing her with his current wife. They even had a child together while they were still dating. The man, panicked that Young Won would expose him, shoved her into a basement storage area, locking her inside. He then rejoined his wife, feigning normalcy. During the interview, Ja Sung noticed Young Won's absence. The husband claimed he'd seen her leave earlier. Trapped in the basement, Young Won's phone had no signal and a dead battery. Furious, she vowed revenge. Ja Sung, suspicious of the husband's strange behavior, went to check the wine cellar. There, he spotted Young Won's hair tie near the basement door. Waiting for the husband to leave, he opened the basement door and went down to investigate. Young Won, mistaking Ja Sung for her ex, attacked him. Only when Ja Sung called out her name did she realize her mistake. Apologizing profusely, she rushed out, determined to tell the wife everything. But as she was about to speak, she saw their adorable son. Unable to bear the thought of shattering their family, she swallowed her anger. She simply apologized for her abrupt disappearance during the interview. On the drive back, Young Won confided in Ja Sung that she'd been tempted to expose her ex, but couldn't bring herself to inflict such pain on the wife and child. Ja Sung told Young Won not to bother writing the article about the house. He decided against featuring it, claiming it wasn't special enough. To avoid suspicion, he added that his decision had nothing to do with her. Young Won stared thoughtfully at Ja Sung, recognizing his kindness. Back home, she tucked her meager savings into her wall calendar and sighed. She briefly wondered if her ex had made the right choice. After all, he now lived a comfortable life, free from the daily struggle of pinching pennies to buy a home. At the convenience store, she craved a beer, but, looking at the money in her hand, decided against it. She needed to save. Meanwhile, Gyeom was buying Jang Chan's discount coupons at inflated prices, just for an excuse to invite Young Won for a beer. Unfortunately for him, he was too late. Young Won had already agreed to go with Ja Sung. Over beers, Ja Sung consoled Young Won, telling her not to dwell on bad people. She deserved better. His comforting words made Young Won wonder if Yui Ju might be right about him having feelings for her. Emboldened by the alcohol, she asked him directly if he liked her. Ja Sung replied, "What if I did?" and then leaned in for a kiss. But this was all in Young Won's imagination. In reality, Ja Sung told her to sober up and stop with the silly notions. He was only being kind out of pity. Humiliated, Young Won dreaded facing him at work the next day. Ja Sung, too, was flustered by the encounter. He'd accidentally called a taxi instead of his usual driver, still denying any romantic interest in Young Won. The next morning at work, Young Won bumped into Ja Sung. Feigning amnesia, she claimed to have no memory of the previous night. However, when Ja Sung asked her to pay him back for the drinks, she immediately corrected him, stating she'd only had beer, and then proceeded to recite everything they'd eaten, contradicting her supposed memory loss. Inside the office, the editor-in-chief, craving coffee, looked expectantly at Young Won. She braced herself for the expense, but to her relief, he turned his attention to Ja Sung, reminding him of his earlier offer to buy everyone coffee to boost productivity. Ja Sung, however, deflected, insisting that Young Won treat everyone this time. He deliberately chose the most expensive coffee, egged on by the editor-in-chief, and Sang-soon, who also opted for the priciest option. Young Won sighed. Yui-ju, seeing her discomfort, offered to pay instead. Alone together, Yui-ju reiterated her belief that Ja Sung liked Young Won. Young Won, embarrassed, confessed she'd asked him directly, and he'd denied it. During a company meeting, Yui-ju proposed a housing project for single mothers, highlighting their vulnerability and lack of access to affordable housing. Ja Sung immediately rejected the idea. He said he didn't want his compassion to be misinterpreted as something else, pointedly looking at Young Won as he emphasized the word misinterpreted. Young Won knew he was referring to her. She blamed Yui-ju, saying she wouldn't have been humiliated if it weren't for Yui-ju's meddling. Yui-ju deflected, arguing it was Young Won's fault for listening to her in the first place. Walking home that evening, Young Won overheard the security guard and a resident discussing her apartment. Approaching the guard, she learned that a previous tenant had committed suicide in her unit. Young Won tried to reassure herself that ghosts weren't real, especially in the age of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. But as she prepared for bed, fear overwhelmed her, and she fled the apartment. Jaeom had initially planned to invite Young Won for a late-night snack, but thought it was too late. To his surprise, she appeared just then, which he found amusing. Young Won confessed she'd left her apartment after hearing about the previous tenant's suicide. Jaeom reassured her it was probably just a rumor. Concerned she'd be spending the night outside, he asked where she'd go. She replied that she often slept outdoors due to her work, which slightly disconcerted Jaeom. He then suggested they go camping. Young Won readily agreed, and they enjoyed the peaceful atmosphere by the river. Looking around at others enjoying delicious food, Young Won's stomach rumbled, but remembering her budget, she resisted the temptation. Jaeom, ever thoughtful, bought her several bags of pizza and fried chicken-flavored chips, suggesting they imagine them as the real thing. It was a cheap alternative. Young Won laughed, grateful for his comforting presence. His thoughtfulness made Jaeom beam. The next day at work, Yui-ju mentioned to her landlord that she'd pay her rent soon. Overhearing, her colleagues learned she was renting a high-end apartment for $1,000,000 a month. The editor-in-chief suggested she rent his much cheaper apartment, but Yui-ju scoffed, declaring she'd rather die than live in such a run-down, inhumane place. Immediately realizing her gaffe, she tried to backpedal, but the editor-in-chief, deeply offended, walked away. He was clearly sensitive about his living situation. That evening, Ja Sung and Jaeom met. Jaeom asked if someone had died in Young Won's apartment. Meanwhile, Young Won and Yui-ju were discussing the same topic. Young Won mentioned that Ja Sung, out of pity, had rented her the apartment where the suicide had occurred. Yui-ju was indignant on her behalf. Later, back at the office, Young Won tried to persuade Ja Sung to reconsider the housing project for single mothers. He refused without even hearing her out. Frustrated, Young Won asked if he was rejecting the project because of her. Ja Sung insisted he was professional, and didn't let personal feelings interfere with work. Still feeling targeted, Young Won finally snapped, yelling at him. She accused him of giving her the apartment where the suicide happened out of pity. Infuriated, Ja Sung told her to move out. He didn't want her as a tenant anymore. Young Won retorted that she would, storming out of his office, cursing under her breath. Outside, she ran into Jaeom, who explained the truth about the apartment. It was all a baseless rumor. The previous tenant, a gambling addict, had been evicted by Ja Sung. Seeking revenge, she'd faked a suicide attempt, driving down the rent and scaring off potential tenants. Hearing this, Young Won regretted her outburst. Now evicted, she had nowhere to go. That night, she sent Ja Sung a lengthy apology. He was about to forgive her when he saw her post on the money-saving forum, expressing her desire for expensive crab curry. He abandoned any thoughts of forgiveness and left her message unanswered. The next day, Ja Sung continued to ignore her, much to Young Won's embarrassment. Knowing it was her fault, she didn't blame him. Later, she accompanied Ja Sung and Jaeom to a client's house for an interview. On the way, Young Won dozed off. Ja Sung, annoyed by her perceived lack of remorse, slammed the car door to wake her when they arrived. Young Won, startled awake, apologized profusely. Jaeom intervened, calming Ja Sung down. Ja Sung couldn't understand Gyeom's protectiveness of Young Won, unaware of his feelings for her. They arrived at a luxurious mansion, leaving them all impressed. Ja Sung found every opportunity to criticize Young Won, from her method of shelling chestnuts for the photoshoot to her food preparation with Gyeom. Everything she did was met with disapproval. But in truth, his criticism wasn't fueled by genuine dislike. He wanted to see if he mattered to her. Jaeom reassured Young Won, telling her not to take Ja Sung's comments to heart. Young Won claimed she wasn't upset, simply trying to figure out how to please him. That evening, Young Won made kimchi stew for everyone. Due to Gyeom's clumsiness, a bowl of hot stew spilled onto Ja Sung. He immediately lashed out at Young Won. Jaeom took responsibility, but Ja Sung retorted that the incident wouldn't have happened if Young Won hadn't made the stew in the first place. Hurt by his unfair criticism, Young Won excused herself. She went to the restroom to wash her hands, debating whether to confront Ja Sung. But the need to keep her job and earn money prevailed, and she abandoned the idea. Meanwhile, Ja Sung was talking to Jaeom, questioning his constant defense of Young Won. Just as Gyeom feared, his secret was out, and Ja Sung concluded it must be pity motivating Gyeom's actions. Jaeom breathed a sigh of relief. He then suddenly announced he'd buy the house Ja Sung had previously shown him. Ja Sung was surprised by this sudden change of heart. Jaeom explained he wanted Young Won to live there rent-free, as she had nowhere else to go. Angered, Ja Sung blurted out Gyeom's wealthy background. Young Won, overhearing this, turned and walked away without hesitation. She realized she was the only truly poor person in this scenario. Jaeom, panicked, chased after her, apologizing profusely. Young Won insisted she wasn't angry at him, just embarrassed. He was a rich heir, and she'd been lecturing him on saving money, even sharing discounted meals with him. Jaeom explained he hadn't meant to deceive her. He just wanted to be her companion. Young Won questioned why he hadn't revealed his true identity from the start, asking if he'd seen her as some sort of amusement. Just then, Ja Sung arrived, claiming Gyeom's actions were motivated by pity. He launched into a condescending tirade, pushing Young Won over the edge. She shoved him onto a pile of chestnut shells. Ja Sung yelped in pain as the shells dug into him, but Young Won, ignoring him, stormed off. She hailed a taxi, but realizing she couldn't afford the fare, she got out at a random location, sitting dejectedly in front of a small grocery store, overwhelmed by her misfortunes. Meanwhile, Gyeom was explaining to Ja Sung that Young Won was a good person, trying her best to please him. She'd stayed up all night posting flyers around the building, dispelling the rumors about her apartment and defending Ja Sung's reputation. At the mansion, she'd made kimchi stew specifically for him, only to be met with harsh criticism. Hearing this, Ja Sung rushed out to find her, eventually spotting her sitting despondently outside the grocery store. He offered her a ride home, but Young Won couldn't face him. Ja Sung resorted to threats, saying he'd sue her for injuring her boss if she didn't get in the car. Inside the car, Ja Sung apologized for his harsh words, and Young Won apologized for injuring him. He told her she could stay in the apartment, and Young Won's spirits lifted. She thanked him profusely. He started to lecture her again, but she'd already fallen asleep. He remembered Gyeom's words about her staying up late because of him. He stopped the car and adjusted her seat so she could lie down more comfortably. As he leaned closer to Young Won, he was tempted to kiss her, but she stirred in her sleep. Ja Sung pulled back, not wanting to overstep. He drove her home safely, reluctant to wake her. A passing car horn startled Young Won awake. They exchanged awkward goodbyes. Back in her apartment, Young Won replayed Ja Sung's apology in her mind, finding it hard to believe. Meanwhile, Ja Sung was convinced his act of kindness had touched her deeply. Young Won posted on the money-saving forum, asking for recommendations for reputable real estate experts. Ja Sung immediately commented, suggesting CEO Ja Sung as the best in the field. Young Won responded with a crying emoji. Ja Sung was surprised by her apparent dislike of him. Jaeom was still guilt-ridden about deceiving Young Won. He knew it was wrong, but his feelings for her had clouded his judgment. At the convenience store, Young Won discovered Jaeom's price-switching scheme. He'd paid for her lunchboxes, disguising the fact that there was no buy-one-get-one deal. Jaeom's friend advised him to confess his feelings to Young Won. Jaeom hesitated, thinking she was still angry with him. Just then, Young Won texted, inviting him for coffee. Jaeom was overjoyed. His friend urged him to confess, or he'd lose his chance. At their meeting, Jaeom apologized for lying. Young Won, however, wasn't angry. She asked if he'd done it out of pity. Jaehyung denied it, proposing they continue their convenience store partnership. They both laughed. Back at the office, the editor-in-chief objected to Ja Sung's proposal for a risque advertisement, comparing him unfavorably to the previous CEO. Ja Sung stormed out. As he did, a group from another department arrived with a cake, congratulating him on winning a prestigious award. Young Won's team rolled their eyes at this blatant display of flattery. The editor-in-chief instructed Young Won's team to join the celebration, and suggested a special interview article praising Ja Sung's contributions. The task fell to Young Won, much to Ja Sung's delight and her dismay. She reluctantly accepted. Yui Ju offered her support if she needed help. Young Won eagerly asked Yui Ju to write the article for her. Yui Ju politely refused, advising Young Won not to give up easily and to embrace challenges as opportunities for growth. The former editor-in-chief returned to the office after a stay in Jeju. She claimed her time on the island had mellowed her out. Her colleagues were skeptical. Their doubts were confirmed when she reviewed Yui Ju's work, berating her for minor typos. It was clear her temperament remained as formidable as ever, but it seemed her harshness was reserved solely for Yui Ju. When reviewing Sang Soon's work, she was far more forgiving, attributing any errors to human fallibility. Yui Ju, sensing the unfair treatment, called out the former editor-in-chief, leading to a heated exchange. Meanwhile, Ja Sung was trying to impress Young Won. After inspecting a property, he asked if she thought he was assertive. Young Won, however, was preoccupied with her hunger, focused solely on what to eat for lunch. Seeing this, Ja Sung announced a lunch break. Young Won eagerly followed him, assuming he'd treat her. To her disappointment, he declared everyone was responsible for their own meals. Young Won was taken aback by his stinginess, noticing his secretary had already left for lunch. Clearly accustomed to this routine, Young Won joined the secretary for lunch, asking him about Ja Sung's personality, even recording the conversation for her interview article. But the secretary remained tight-lipped, offering no insights. It turned out Ja Sung had never treated him to a meal in his 3 years as his secretary. Young Won decided to interview someone else, choosing the security guard at Ja Sung's building. The guard proceeded to complain about Ja Sung for over 30 minutes. Young Won couldn't use any of it. It would ruin Ja Sung's image. Desperate, she turned to Gyeom. He described Ja Sung as difficult and irritating, someone who constantly complained. Young Won agreed. Ja Sung always seemed to find something to criticize. Gyeom, however, was more interested in pursuing Young Won. Looking around at the couples nearby, he asked why she didn't have a boyfriend. Young Won replied that she wasn't interested in a relationship, finding it too much trouble. This slightly deflated Gyeom. The following day, Ja Sung received a prestigious award. The entire company attended the ceremony. As he accepted the award, everyone applauded. The editor-in-chief even presented him with flowers. But during his acceptance speech, everyone froze. He dedicated the award solely to himself, refusing to share the credit. His colleagues were stunned, while their competitors erupted in laughter. Even Gyeom and Jang Chan, who were documenting the event, were taken aback. After the ceremony, everyone criticized Ja Sung's self-centeredness. He even worried if the flowers were purchased with company funds. The editor-in-chief reassured him that they were a gift from the team, putting his mind slightly at ease. Gyeom approached Ja Sung, offering to retake his photo, as his expression during the acceptance speech had been rather emotionless. Ja Sung declined and quickly left. The team headed home, disappointed. They encountered their rivals in the elevator, who taunted them about their stingy boss. The editor-in-chief, though annoyed, couldn't argue, it was true. He texted his team, devising a plan. He'd count down and on. 1. They'd all rush out. As the elevator doors opened, he stepped on the rival employee's foot to clear the way. But their escape was thwarted by a cleaning person blocking the exit. The rival, foot now stomped on, retaliated, starting a brawl between the two teams. After the exhausting fight, the editor-in-chief and Wei Zhu's team went for dinner. He loudly bad-mouthed Ja Sung, complaining about their hellish workplace. Unaware that Ja Sung and a few others were dining in the next room, Ja Sung, overhearing everything, stormed out. Gyeom followed, trying to console him, but Ja Sung brushed it off, claiming he wasn't bothered by the gossip. He'd left to avoid an awkward encounter, reminding Gyeom not to tell the editor-in-chief. Meanwhile, a restaurant employee informed the editor-in-chief about Ja Sung's presence next door, advising discretion. The editor-in-chief and his team were horrified, realizing their boss had overheard everything. Ja Sung, taking a taxi home, stewed over their comments. Furious, he stopped at a bookstore, looking for a book on firing laws. Coincidentally, Young Won was there too, searching for a book on how to buy a house quickly. Back home, she devoured her new purchase. The next day at work, instead of criticizing the editor-in-chief, Ja-sung showered him with praise. He commended his dedication and 10 years of service, prompting a round of applause from the bewildered staff. After Ja-sung left, the editor-in-chief suspected an ulterior motive behind the sudden praise. Convinced he'd overheard their conversation, he was right. At the bookstore, while reaching for the book on firing laws, Ja-sung had noticed a book titled, "Praise Makes Even Whales Dance." It advocated praising employees instead of firing them, as a way to improve performance and change their perception of their boss. Ja-sung had bought the book and decided to put its principles into practice. Later, observing the editor-in-chief's renewed focus on work, Ja-sung was pleased with the results. He decided to extend his praise to others, targeting Sang-soon and Yoo-ju next. Meanwhile, Gyeom was admiring photos of Young Won. Observing Gyeom's infatuation, Jang Chan urged him to confess his feelings, but Gyeom hesitated. Recalling Young Won's reluctance to date, Jang Chan warned him that if he didn't act quickly, someone else might snatch her up. Flustered, Gyeom retorted that Jang Chan, who'd never had a girlfriend, was in no position to give relationship advice, then shooed him away. Meanwhile, Young Won visited the single mother she'd met earlier. The mother revealed that Ja-sung had visited them, explaining why her housing renovation project had been canceled. Since she was renting, the renovation would only benefit her landlord, who could evict them once the work was completed. He expressed his empathy and regret for being unable to help. He encouraged her to find a new job to support her family, emphasizing that her efforts would create a better future for her son. While the mother stepped out briefly, Ja-sung spoke to her son, advising him to persevere despite any disadvantages and strive for success, just like he had. The mother, returning, overheard this conversation. Recognizing Ja-sung's hidden warmth beneath his cold exterior, she gave Young Won a pair of hand-knit gloves to give to Ja-sung, as a token of her gratitude. Young Won was surprised, realizing Ja-sung's kindness. Back at the office, Young Won received a call from Yoo-ju, inviting her for drinks and asking her to bring Ja-sung's manuscript from his desk. Yoo-ju also mentioned that Ja-sung wouldn't fire them. The former editor-in-chief, who'd known Ja-sung for years, assured them he wasn't that kind of person. She revealed that when Ja-sung was appointed, the staff had protested, but he hadn't held it against them, continuing to work amicably. It seemed he wasn't as petty as they'd thought. After the call, Young Won placed the gloves on Ja-sung's desk. She noticed the "Praise Makes Even Whales Dance" book with Ja-sung's note. When an employee makes a spontaneous effort, praise immediately. Engrave this on your heart. Understanding his intentions, she poured her heart into writing the interview article and sent it to him. Ja-sung, at the gym, received the article and was delighted. It was filled with praise. He beamed, even breaking into a little dance, earning amused glances, and even some applause from fellow gym-goers. Ja-sung realized everyone was staring at him. Embarrassed, he stopped, wondering why he'd lost his composure like that. Could it be because of Young Won? Despite his internal questioning, he was still basking in the glow of her complimentary article. Meanwhile, Young Won, completely unaware of the impact her article had had, was watching Ja-sung's video. In it, he explained that one of the fastest ways to buy a house is to identify the specific house you want. That way, you'll be motivated to save. Young Won paused the video, thoughtfully listing the features of her dream home. Suddenly, it dawned on her. Her current apartment already met all those requirements. So why was she looking for another place? The next day, Young Won bumped into Yoo-ju on her way to work. Yoo-ju was frantically searching for hand cream. Young Won immediately offered her a nearly empty tube. Yoo-ju was taken aback by Young Won's frugality, using a tube of hand cream down to the last drop. She also noticed Young Won's worn-out bag. The print on it almost completely faded. Yoo-ju advised her against being so excessively thrifty, suggesting it would only lead to exhaustion. Young Won, however, insisted she was fine with her lifestyle. For the sake of her future home, she could endure it. Later at the office, Sang-soon suddenly burst in, dancing wildly. Everyone knew this meant he was about to enter another housing lottery. He excitedly texted the group chat, accidentally including Ja-sung, that he had a good chance of winning this time, as his fortune teller had predicted it. He also mentioned he needed to stay silent for good luck. His colleagues quickly warned him about the accidental text to Ja-sung. Just as Sang-soon was bracing himself for a scolding, Ja-sung approached, patted him on the shoulder, and praised his ambition. The editor-in-chief and the others were puzzled by Ja-sung's sudden generosity with compliments. Young Won explained that he'd been reading a leadership book that emphasized praising employees. The editor-in-chief then whispered to Yoo-ju that, to get more compliments, they should badmouth their boss, but make sure he doesn't hear. Yoo-ju turned around to find Ja-sung standing right there, having overheard everything. This was the last straw. Ja Sung snapped, reverting to his usual self. He criticized them, asking if they only worked hard out of fear of being fired. The editor-in-chief tried to explain, but Ja Sung wouldn't listen, storming off in anger. Later, Ja Sung and Young Won went to interview director Ko, but they received a last-minute cancellation call. Because her dog was sick, Ja Sung was furious and immediately grabbed his phone, ready to unleash his anger. However, seeing Young Won's innocent eyes fixed on him, he suppressed his rage and instead wished director Ko's dog a speedy recovery. Young Won was incredulous. She couldn't believe Ja Sung wasn't angry. As they drove back, Ja Sung was still replaying Young Won's praise from the article in his mind. Suddenly, Young Won asked to be let out of the car. She had something to do and it wasn't on his way. Looking at her face, Ja Sung softened and agreed to take her where she needed to go. It turned out Young Won was picking up photography props for the company from a craft workshop. Watching the artisan's work, she was captivated. Ja Sung suggested she could try it while he went to scout some locations. Young Won, delighted, eagerly joined a crafting session. Meanwhile, after a bit of scouting, Ja Sung stopped. Why was he spending his time doing this? Was it because of Young Won? He immediately returned to the craft workshop, intending to hurry her back to the office. But then he saw her, sunlight illuminating her beautiful face as she worked, and he was mesmerized. Young Won looked up and saw him. She presented him with a newly made keychain, his name meticulously engraved on the back. Ja Sung accepted it, slightly surprised, a smile involuntarily playing on his lips. To thank her for the keychain, he treated her to a lavish meal. He ordered a bottle of white wine. Young Won glanced at him, and Ja Sung, slightly embarrassed, quickly explained that he wanted to drink it. Young Won smiled and said she'd like some too. In stark contrast to their sweet scene, Yui Ju was tossing and turning, unable to sleep after being dumped by her boyfriend. She obsessively checked her phone, hoping for a message from him, but he had vanished. Just as she was about to give up and try to sleep, a notification popped up. Excited, she opened it, thinking it was her ex, but it was Sang Soon asking her to stand in line for the housing lottery because he was busy. Yui Ju angrily refused, but Sang Soon bombarded her with messages. Finally, she relented when he promised to introduce her to a friend. She quickly changed her mind, throwing on a jacket and heading out. In the cold night air, a long line snaked its way towards the lottery. Yui Ju spotted Sang Soon. He was bundled up in layers of clothing, looking like a pauper. She considered pretending not to know him, but he enthusiastically waved her over. Mortifyingly, he then proceeded to shed several layers of clothing, wiggling and gyrating as he walked, drawing stares from everyone around. To top it off, he attempted to climb over a barrier and promptly tripped and fell. Meanwhile, Ja Sung and Young Won were enjoying their wine. Knowing how much Young Won loved his house, he promised not to sell it for now, offering to wait until she had saved enough money to buy it from him. Young Won expressed her gratitude. They continued to drink and laugh, their conversation flowing easily. Ja Sung was struck by how beautiful Young Won looked. Both of them ended up quite drunk. When Ja Sung opened his eyes again, he was in bed. Leaning over him was a beautiful face. Young Won's? He blinked, focusing. It was the editor-in-chief. Both men woke up with a jolt. It turned out that after Ja Sung put Young Won in a taxi last night, he'd intended to get one himself, but he ran into the editor-in-chief, also quite drunk, getting into a cab. They ended up going back to the editor-in-chief's place and passing out there. Mortified, Ja Sung quickly made his escape, reminding the editor-in-chief to keep the incident a secret. The editor-in-chief readily agreed, seeing Ja Sung out the door. He scratched his head and turned to go back inside, only to be met by his furious wife. She berated him for bringing a drunk executive home while their children were studying for exams and needed quiet. The editor-in-chief cringed. He was in the doghouse again. In the elevator, Ja Sung admonished himself for drinking so much, blaming Young Won's praise for his lapse in judgment. But looking at the article again, he couldn't help but smile. Meanwhile, on the bus, Young Won was reminiscing about the previous evening with Ja Sung, a smile playing on her lips. But her smile quickly faded as the zipper on her bag broke. Embarrassed, she couldn't get her bus pass out and resorted to awkwardly swiping the entire bag over the reader. Later, at the office, Yui Ju was dressed to the nines, sporting a sophisticated look and flawless makeup, preparing for the blind date Sang Soon had promised. Sang Soon arrived shortly after, seemingly elated. Everyone assumed he had won the housing lottery, but it turned out he was putting on a brave face to mask his misery from the previous night's debacle. Only Yui Ju bothered to comfort him. However, her next question was about the time of her blind date. Sang Soon backtracked, claiming he was in no state to set her up with anyone. Furious, Yui Ju demanded he reimburse her for the cost of her makeup and hair. Elsewhere, Jang Chan, Seizing an opportunity while Guillaume was on the phone, quizzed Young Won about her ideal type. He even pointed to Guillaume, asking if he was her type. Young Won nonchalantly replied that maybe he was, but she didn't see the relevance of the question. Later, the three of them, along with Ja Sung, visited a luxury dog apartment complex. It was a project Ja Sung had invested in, a high-end residence exclusively for dogs, designed with the same modern elegance as human apartments. Guillaume was petting a small dog when Young Won approached and complimented him for being kind to animals. Hidden nearby, Ja Sung overheard Young Won's compliment to Guillaume and felt a pang of displeasure. He'd thought Young Won only complimented him. He then rationalized it, thinking that Guillaume was kind, so the compliment was deserved. However, as he continued to observe Young Won, he noticed she complimented everyone she met, even praising a passing dog. This dampened his spirits. He thought her compliments to him were special. Young Won's kind words also led to a misunderstanding with Guillaume, who briefly entertained the idea that she might be interested in him. Zhang Chan, however, quickly dashed his hopes. Zhang Chan revealed that he'd asked Young Won about her type, and she confided that she didn't like younger men. A past relationship with a younger man had ended badly, leaving her scarred and determined never to date down again. Undeterred, Sang soon vowed to pursue her anyway. Meanwhile, Ja Sung, still sulking about the compliments issue, assigned Young Won extra work, making her stay late to write a draft. Guillaume, knowing she was working overtime, thoughtfully brought her food. As they talked, Young Won praised his generosity, saying he was even more mature than her. Guillaume's face lit up. Earlier she'd said she didn't like younger men. Now she was praising his maturity. Did this mean he had a chance? After they finished eating, Young Won returned to her desk to finish the draft, while Guillaume went to see Ja Sung. When Young Won finished, she texted Ja Sung to let him know, but he brushed her off, telling her just to leave it on his desk. Young Won fumed. She'd stayed late to finish the work, and this was how he treated her. Meanwhile, Ja Sung was relaxing and chatting with Guillaume. Guillaume excitedly shared that he had a crush, and no longer wanted to return to the US. Ja Sung was surprised, curious about the woman who had prompted such a change of heart. But Guillaume remained tight-lipped. Guillaume then suggested moving in with Ja Sung, who immediately refused. He wasn't willing to share his personal space. Young Won returned home after her long day to find Yuiju crying outside her door. Yuiju was distraught. Her boyfriend had dumped her. Her blind date had been a disaster, and she was convinced she was destined to be forever alone. Young Won comforted her and invited her inside. But as they sat on the sofa, water started dripping from the ceiling. Young Won called Ja Sung to deal with the leak. While Young Won wanted to handle it amicably, Yuiju insisted on compensation, citing the landlord's responsibility. A short while later, Young Won received a transfer from Ja Sung, a hefty 500,000 won. She felt it was too much and wanted to return some of it, but Yuiju stopped her, suggesting she use it to buy a new bag and, in the meantime, stay at her place. Young Won happily agreed, but upon arriving at Yuiju's apartment, she ran into Yuiju's ex-boyfriend. Young Won discreetly excused herself. Yuiju, flustered, offered her a designer bag as an apology, but Young Won politely declined. Young Won wandered the streets, wondering if she should get a hotel room for the night. She passed a shop window, her eyes drawn to a beautiful bag, but remembering her need to save, she couldn't bring herself to buy it. She browsed the sale rack, looking for a cheaper alternative. Just then, her mother texted, needing 500,000 won for rent. After a moment of contemplation, Young Won abandoned the idea of a new bag, transferred the money to her mother, and resigned herself to returning to her leaky apartment. Ja Sung returned to Young Won's apartment to retrieve his forgotten phone. He picked up the phone on the table and wandered through the apartment, finding her asleep in her room. He assumed she was feigning illness for more compensation and angrily turned to leave. But at the door, he realized he'd grabbed the wrong phone. A text message popped up. Young Won's mother apologized to her daughter for always asking for money. Just then, Young Won emerged, pulling her suitcase. Ja Sung looked at her with a newfound sympathy. He offered her a temporary stay at his place until her apartment was repaired. Young Won declined, but Ja Sung insisted, telling her to just do as he said and stop worrying about everyone. This comment puzzled Young Won. She wasn't sure what he meant. They arrived at Ja Sung's luxurious apartment. When Young Won woke up, she was startled to find Ja Sung lying next to her. He woke up at the same moment and scrambled out of bed in a panic. Eager to avoid misunderstanding, he quickly explained. He'd woken up in the night for water and heard Young Won coughing. He'd checked on her and found her burning with fever. He'd spent the night tending to her, putting cold compresses on her forehead, and had fallen asleep from exhaustion. After his explanation, he turned and left, berating himself for dozing off. Young Won, however, was touched. She saw Ja Sung's kindness, not only in offering her a place to stay, but also in taking care of her when she was sick. She left the room and took in the luxurious yet sparsely furnished apartment. Ja Sung explained he preferred a minimalist aesthetic, which also deterred burglars. Young Won went out to buy breakfast for Ja Sung, but, unsure of his preferences, returned with instant ramen. Ja Sung declined, stating he wasn't a ramen for breakfast kind of guy, and took her to a restaurant in the building. Young Won was delighted by the delicious kimchi jjigae. Ja Sung explained it was just one of the perks of living there, and then gave her a tour of the building. Young Won was amazed by the amenities: a swimming pool, a gym, a rooftop lounge, all sleek and modern. Back at the office, the editor-in-chief was scolding Sang-soon for staring blankly into space all day instead of working. Sang-soon, feeling guilty, jumped up to look for the information he'd been assigned. The editor-in-chief snatched his phone away, trying to prevent him from seeing another lottery loss notification. However, he accidentally saw a text from Sang-soon's parents. They'd sold their house so he could buy a new one and get married. The editor-in-chief felt a pang of guilt for his harsh words. He followed Sang-soon and returned his phone. Sang-soon read the message and burst into tears. The editor-in-chief comforted him, apologizing for his earlier outburst. Later, after composing himself, Sang-soon asked Yui-ju how her blind date went. Yui-ju angrily declared that her blind date had been a bust, but luckily, she decided to get back together with her ex. She blamed Sang-soon for setting her up with such a loser, while he countered that the date failed because of her incessant ridiculous questions. Their argument escalated, but the moment Ja Sung arrived, they fell silent, pretending nothing had happened. As Ja Sung entered, the editor-in-chief immediately greeted him and suggested a meeting about the company's charity work. Ja Sung declined, saying his afternoon was full, but suggested discussing it over lunch. During lunch, Yui-ju and Sang-soon continued their petty squabble under the table, clearly not over their earlier disagreement. The editor-in-chief, noticing their antics, subtly intervened. He recommended Ja Sung try the soft tofu stew, the restaurant's specialty, but Ja Sung declined, saying he'd already had it that morning and ordered squid ink rice instead. Just then, Young Won arrived and mentioned she, too, had already had soft tofu stew that morning and would order something else. Ja Sung started, flustered, launching into a rambling explanation about how they hadn't eaten together, even though no one had asked. Moments later, the editor-in-chief noticed that Young Won and Ja Sung were using the same brand of shampoo, brand K. Ja Sung, jumping again, over-explained that he wasn't living with Young Won, then abruptly excused himself. His strange behavior only fueled everyone's suspicions. One colleague remarked that, judging by his reaction, she'd assumed they were living together. This comment made Young Won slightly uneasy. After lunch, Ja Sung pulled Young Won aside and warned her not to reveal they were living together. Young Won smirked, thinking he was being ridiculous. His behavior had almost given them away, and now he was lecturing her. Back at the office, Young Won helped organize the donated items for charity. Yui-ju brought in a large bag of barely worn designer clothes, each piece only worn once or twice. Sang-soon took photos of the clothes to show his girlfriend, who wanted to buy one of the shirts. He pleaded with Yui-ju for a discount, but, still smarting from their earlier argument, she refused. After some unsuccessful haggling, he reluctantly bought the shirt at her asking price. Young Won had to work late that evening, and texted Ja Sung to let him know she'd be back late. He replied with a new code to his apartment, a ridiculously long string of numbers. When Young Won arrived, she struggled to enter the code, having to look back and forth between her phone and the keypad. Inside, Ja Sung, worried about her, was about to go look for her when he heard her fumbling with the lock. He rushed to open the door for her. Young Won explained that the code was too long to remember. Ja Sung explained that the numbers were all significant figures related to real estate, launching into a lengthy explanation. But Young Won, exhausted, just tuned him out. On his way home, Sang-soon admired the shirt he'd bought from Yui-ju, excitedly anticipating giving it to his girlfriend. Suddenly, 300,000 won fell out of the pocket. He considered returning the money to Yui-ju and demanding a free meal. However, the next day at work, he realized Yui-ju had no recollection of the money, so he decided to keep it. Yui-ju was complaining about the terrible doctor Sang-soon had set her up with. He turned out to be a fraud, selling counterfeit medicine, and had even been featured in the news. Sang-soon was about to argue, but, remembering the 300,000 won, he quickly changed his tune, siding with Yui-ju and joining in on her criticisms of the doctor. Later, while everyone was photographing the donated items, Yui-ju spotted an expensive bag she liked and planned to buy. Sang-soon also wanted it for his girlfriend, but hearing Wei Ju express interest, he immediately offered it to her. Everyone was surprised by his uncharacteristic generosity. After work, the editor-in-chief invited Wei Ju out for Korean BBQ. Wei Ju offered to treat, but Sung Soon interjected, arguing that as the older man, the editor-in-chief should be the one paying. The editor-in-chief, flustered, mumbled that he would cover the bill. Wei Ju was puzzled by Sang Soon's sudden niceness. She invited Young Won to join them, but Young Won declined, claiming she had to rush back to her hometown for a family emergency. In reality, she had plans with Ja Sung. She'd texted him earlier, promising to cook him a delicious dinner to thank him. However, Guillaume overheard Young Won's mention of going home and offered her a ride so she wouldn't have to take the bus. Young Won refused, but Guillaume, mistaking her refusal for politeness, insisted on driving her. Exasperated, Young Won finally snapped, demanding to be let out of the car. Startled, Guillaume, assuming he'd offended her, pulled over. Young Won thought she was free, but she'd left her bag in Guillaume's car. He dutifully returned it, informing her that he'd also booked her the earliest ticket back to her hometown. Left with no other option, she called Ja Sung to apologize, explaining she wouldn't be able to make it. Ja Sung said it was fine, his tone even, but he'd actually prepared cake and champagne for their evening. Then Ja Sung received an anonymous threatening text message. Worried, he decided to go find Young Won. Before leaving, he tossed the cake and champagne in the trash. Meanwhile, Sang Soon, finishing up his overtime work, received a text from his girlfriend. She loved the shirt he'd given her and told him to be nice to the person who sold it to him. Feeling a pang of guilt, Sang Soon put the 300,000 won in an envelope and slipped it into Wei Ju's desk drawer. But just as he closed the drawer, the door behind him creaked open. Someone seemed to be reaching for the money. The next day at work, Wei Ju confronted Sang Soon, furious about the hidden money in the shirt pocket. She'd heard from the dry cleaner about the 300,000 won. Sang Soon stammered, explaining he'd returned the money to her desk drawer. But when they checked, the envelope was gone. Wei Ju, convinced he was lying, angrily demanded that he repay her. At the company's real estate fair, Wei Ju encouraged Young Won to use the discount coupons they were handing out to buy a new bag. But Young Won declined. If she got a coupon, she wanted to buy something for Ja Sung. Meanwhile, Ja Sung was busy providing free real estate advice at the fair, unaware that someone online was slandering him, accusing him of greed and hosting the fair for personal gain. Young Won and her colleagues investigated. Young Won noticed a discarded piece of paper that matched the one in the online post. Without hesitation, she dug through the trash to retrieve it. Remembering a distinctive mark on the paper, she quickly located it and identified the man who had discarded it. She gave chase, but he was too fast. Luckily, Guillaume intervened, and the man was apprehended. The grateful editor-in-chief gave all the collected discount coupons to Young Won, who, in the commotion, had fallen and injured her hand. She pondered what to buy Ja Sung with the coupons. She decided on a plan to brighten up his sparsely decorated apartment. Meanwhile, the editor-in-chief, Wei Ju, and Sang Soon were relaxing after the fair, gossiping over drinks. Sang Soon sarcastically remarked that the online accusations about Ja Sung being greedy seemed accurate. Ja Sung, within earshot, was hurt and saddened. He hadn't realized he was perceived so negatively. At a charity auction for the designer bag Wei Ju coveted, she and Sang Soon engaged in a fierce bidding war. Jang Chan encouraged Guillaume to bid on the bag for Young Won, but Guillaume refused and stormed off. Ultimately, a wealthy man won the bag with a significantly higher bid. Back at the office, Wei Ju and the editor-in-chief continued to berate Sang Soon, still suspicious about the missing 300,000 won. But just then, Wei Ju received a transfer notification from Sang Soon. They assumed he'd returned the money out of guilt. At that moment, Wei Ju discovered her desk drawer was jammed. After some effort, she opened it and found the original envelope with the money inside. Wei Ju and the editor-in-chief felt terrible for wrongly accusing him. Sang Soon entered, explaining that the transfer wasn't an admission of guilt, but a response to their relentless accusations. Ja Sung returned home to find the plant Young Won had bought. He was not pleased. He criticized her purchase, complaining that it would only make moving more difficult. After his outburst, Ja Sung retreated to his room, feeling he'd been too harsh, but unwilling to let Young Won derail his pursuit of wealth. Meanwhile, Young Won sat on the curb, tears streaming down her face. Feeling hurt and insignificant, she decided to go to her mother's for comfort and support. While talking to her mother, she received a call from Guillaume, who wanted to bring her medicine for her hand. He was disappointed to learn she was at her mother's. He also revealed that it was the anniversary of Ja Sung's parents' deaths. Young Won finally understood Ja Sung's foul mood. She learned that Ja Sung had grown up poor, but his parents had been kind and loving. Tragically, they died in a car accident on a rainy day. Driven by this loss, Ja-sung had become obsessed with wealth, believing a luxury apartment would bring him happiness. Now, having achieved his goal, he still seemed unhappy. Ja-sung drowned his sorrows in alcohol. Drunk and despondent, he returned to his apartment. A light was on, waiting for him. It was Young Won. She'd returned early from her mother's to be with him. In his drunken haze, he embraced her, thanking her for being there. Young Won gently patted his back, comforting him. Waking up the next morning, Young Won was giddy, anticipating a significant shift in their relationship. But Ja-sung remembered nothing. Young Won was crushed, riding the bus to work, feeling foolish for believing he reciprocated her feelings. At the office, she discovered a male admirer had gifted her the designer bag from the auction, the very bag Yui-ju and Sang-soon had fought over. She had no idea who he was or why he'd given her such an expensive gift. She suspected it might be the user nicknamed Dragon. On her online money-saving forum, she messaged him, asking if he'd sent the bag. Dragon replied that he hadn't attended the auction. Dragon was, in fact, Ja-sung, using the alias to keep tabs on Young Won's online activity. Later, he confronted Young Won, scolding her for using company time for personal matters in the restroom. Claiming it was impacting her work, Young Won was heartbroken, confused by his sudden coldness. Meanwhile, Yui-ju, still curious about Young Won's secret admirer, asked Gyeom for photos from the auction. Gyeom seemed hesitant to share them, but Jang Chan claimed he had seen a picture of the man. They finally located the photo of the bag's buyer. He was handsome and looked affluent. Yui-ju showed the picture to Young Won, encouraging her to pursue him, but Young Won was genuinely uninterested. Seeing Ja-sung approaching, the editor-in-chief deliberately reprimanded Young Won for looking at a male admirer's photo during work hours. Ja-sung interjected, saying the editor-in-chief was mistaken. It was lunchtime. Young Won was entitled to think about whomever she pleased. Even considering dating someone was her private matter, and no one should interfere. Young Won knew his seemingly supportive words were laced with sarcasm. Meanwhile, Jang Chan confronted Gyeom, revealing he knew Gyeom had bought Young Won the bag. It turned out Gyeom had wanted to give her the bag himself, but was too shy, so he'd hired someone to bid on his behalf. Jang Chan scolded him for being cowardly. If he didn't speak up, how would Young Won ever know? Young Won accompanied Ja-sung to view a property, but her mind was elsewhere. She couldn't understand his sudden shift in behavior. The man who had been so affectionate the previous night was now cold and critical. He snapped at her again for being distracted and not listening to his description of the property. Young Won didn't care about the house anymore. She wanted to know why he'd changed so abruptly. They arrived at a luxurious beachfront property. However, the owner had a change of heart, deciding not to sell. He wanted to retire there. Young Won tried to persuade him, but Ja-sung saw her efforts as naive and unhelpful. Even the homeowner sensed the tension between them. As they were leaving, Ja-sung received an urgent call about another property and told Young Won to take public transport back to the office. Young Won angrily stepped out of the car and demanded his company card for transportation. He handed it over, not expecting her to take a taxi instead of the bus. Ja-sung was furious. For a frugal person like him, such extravagant spending was ludicrous. Young Won retorted that he had taught her to differentiate between personal and business expenses. Returning to the office was business, so using the company card was perfectly justified. Back at the office, Gyeom wanted to confess his feelings but used the anonymous admirer's identity to ask Young Won on a date. Young Won told Yui-ju about the invitation. Yui-ju urged her to go, seeing it as a golden opportunity for romance. Ja-sung, overhearing their conversation, wanted to prevent her from going. He assigned her overtime work, telling her to write next week's draft. However, Young Won had already finished it. She handed him the completed draft and quickly left. Frustrated, Ja-sung scrutinized the document, searching for flaws. Finally, he angrily summoned the editor-in-chief, demanding he call Young Won back to revise the draft. He'd found a fatal error. It was single-sided. Everyone was baffled. Why was single-sided printing such a grave mistake? They could simply reprint it. But Ja-sung flew into a rage, accusing Young Won of prioritizing a date over her work. Yui-ju, sensing Ja-sung's jealousy, intervened, explaining that Young Won was only meeting the admirer to return the bag. Ja-sung visibly relaxed, abruptly changing his tune and telling everyone not to bother calling Young Won back. Meanwhile, Gyeom, dejected, received the returned bag. He'd missed his chance again. However, Young Won's gesture made him admire her even more. She clearly wasn't materialistic. Back at the office, as everyone was leaving, Sang-soon suddenly collapsed. They assumed he'd fainted from another lottery loss, but shockingly, he'd fainted from winning. He woke up and excitedly announced he'd finally won an apartment. He then rushed home to share the good news with his girlfriend. Young Won, having returned the bag, went home. Lying in bed, she replayed Yuiju's words in her mind. Had Ja Sung been jealous? She wasn't sure what to believe. His behavior was so erratic. Just then, Ja Sung returned. Young Won went to greet him. She stood beneath the light, just like the previous night. He told her he remembered her waiting for him, and thanked her for always being there. He leaned in, as if to kiss her, and then her phone rang, waking her up. It had all been a dream. The next morning, Ja Sung invited her to furniture shopping. He'd decided his apartment was too bare. He'd realized, as she'd said, that a comfortable, well-furnished home was essential for happiness. Young Won was bewildered. Why was he suddenly so receptive to her opinions? Stranger still, he chose everything she liked, even saying he'd display the plant she'd given him. Young Won told herself not to get carried away, but she couldn't explain his sudden change of heart. While hanging a picture, Young Won lost her footing and nearly fell. Ja Sung caught her. They stood there, momentarily embraced. Young Won, flustered, quickly pulled away. Ja Sung, equally embarrassed, felt a flush of warmth. The following day, Saturday, Young Won planned to cook Ja Sung a meal, making up for their canceled dinner. But Ja Sung was heading out. Just as he was leaving, he overheard Young Won mentioning her cooking plans. He quickly fabricated a story about his secretary being sick, giving him the day off. Young Won, delighted, rushed out to buy more groceries, only to see a secretary parking outside the building. He was on the phone with his girlfriend, excitedly telling her they could spend the day together, because his boss had suddenly given him a sick day. This was the first time in 3 years of working together that Ja Sung had taken a day off. Young Won was thrilled, convinced he was interested in her. As soon as she set the table, Ja Sung devoured the food, declaring it his first home-cooked meal in ages, and praising it as 300 times better than restaurant food. Young Won beamed, her feet swinging happily under the table. After lunch, Ja Sung settled on the sofa with a book. Young Won suggested a movie to unwind. They started a film on the projector, but Ja Sung quickly drifted off to sleep. With him asleep, Young Won turned off the projector and listened to a recording for work. However, she overheard a conversation from the recording, where the homeowner asked Ja Sung if he had feelings for her, questioning why he was letting her stay at his place. Ja Sung had replied that he was simply helping her out while her apartment was being repaired, and there was absolutely nothing romantic between them. Young Won was deflated. Meanwhile, Yuiju, the editor-in-chief, and Sang-soon were celebrating Sang-soon's lottery win. The editor-in-chief, called home by his wife to buy more stain remover, had to leave early. Sang-soon escorted the very drunk editor-in-chief home. Yuiju, left alone, noticed numerous missed calls from Sang-soon's girlfriend on his phone. When he returned, she questioned him about it. Sang-soon confessed he'd seen his girlfriend with another man, but was pretending not to know, desperately wanting to hold on to the relationship. He was terrified that answering her calls would lead to a breakup. He then broke down, sobbing. He'd worked so hard to win an apartment and marry his girlfriend, and now, just as he'd achieved his goal, she was leaving him. Yuiju felt for him but remained silent, watching him cry. Back at Ja Sung's apartment, he woke up and found Young Won gone. She was at a nearby park, crying, afraid her feelings for him were growing too deep, while constantly misinterpreting his kindness as romantic interest, despite his denials. Suddenly, Ja Sung appeared. Young Won tried to avoid him, telling him to stop being nice to her, as it was giving her the wrong idea. As she turned to leave, he stopped her. He told her she wasn't mistaken. He did like her. Young Won turned back, stunned. He confessed his feelings, shyly adding that she didn't need to answer right away. But Young Won immediately confessed she liked him too. They gazed at each other, about to embrace, when Gyeom suddenly appeared, surprised to see Young Won there. She stammered that she'd left her phone in Ja Sung's car, and quickly excused herself. The next morning, Ja Sung texted Young Won, asking if she'd slept well, fishing to see if she remembered his confession. She replied that she had. He suggested they officially start dating that day. Young Won agreed. Ja Sung whooped with joy. His secretary, witnessing this, assumed he'd made a successful real estate investment, completely oblivious to his boss's newfound romance. Ja Sung arrived at work in high spirits. The editor-in-chief noticed his unusually cheerful demeanor. Ja Sung reminded himself to maintain his professional composure and not reveal his relationship. But just then Young Won entered, looking stunning in a stylish dress. Ja Sung was captivated. It turned out she'd stayed at Yuiju's and borrowed the dress. Everyone complimented Young Won on how well the dress suited her, a sentiment Ja Sung wholeheartedly shared. Throughout the meeting, Ja Sung couldn't take his eyes off Young Won. Smiling to himself, he texted her, telling her how beautiful she looked. Young Won, reading the message, beamed. The editor-in-chief, noticing this, reprimanded her for using her phone during the meeting, then turned to Ja Sung with a self-satisfied look, believing he'd effectively enforced Ja Sung's rules. Later, Young Won visited Ja Sung in his office. He apologized for getting her in trouble with the editor-in-chief. He suggested they go public with their relationship so they could act more naturally. But Young Won declined, embarrassed by the prospect. Ja Sung promised to be discreet. He wanted to take her out to lunch, but, having completely forgotten about the pre-arranged company lunch, he was out of luck. At the restaurant, Young Won tried to sit next to Ja Sung, but he immediately told her to sit elsewhere. Young Won was confused, but he was trying to avoid suspicion. During the meal, Ja Sung personally distributed abalone to everyone, pointedly leaving the largest one for later and skipping Young Won entirely. He was secretly saving it for her to enjoy without drawing attention. However, his unusual behavior only fueled everyone's speculation. After lunch, on their way back to the office, Young Won ran into Jang Chan and Guillaume. Jang Chan urged Guillaume to confess his feelings and give Young Won the bag. But Guillaume, still too timid, continued to hide it from her. Back at the office, the editor-in-chief, grateful that Sang Soon hadn't been able to join them for lunch due to work, offered him a stack of discount coupons for his wedding. Sang Soon forced a smile. He and his girlfriend were on the verge of breaking up. There would be no wedding and no need for coupons. Yui Ju, understanding his predicament, tried to subtly explain the situation. But the editor-in-chief remained oblivious. Sang Soon simply mumbled his agreement. Meanwhile, Ja Sung, happily daydreaming about Young Won, received a notification from the building superintendent that the leak in her apartment had been fixed. Not wanting her to move out, he told the superintendent not to inform her. He then texted Young Won, falsely claiming the repairs were taking longer than expected, and she'd have to stay at his place a while longer. He then invited her to dinner. Young Won excitedly went to freshen up, but her hair got caught in her zipper, ripping the dress. Panicked, she looked up the dress online and discovered it cost over 1,000,000 won. She worried about how she'd ever repay Yui Ju. Yui Ju, sensing her distress, lied and said it was a cheap knockoff, relieving Young Won. They made dinner plans together. Young Won went to Ja Sung's office to cancel their date, explaining she was having dinner with Yui Ju. Jealous, Ja Sung gave Yui Ju tickets to a film festival, boasting about the celebrity attendees. Yui Ju, thrilled, canceled on Young Won, claiming she had to work late. Young Won offered to help, but Ja Sung overheard and immediately intervened, sternly forbidding her from doing someone else's work. Everyone assumed he had some sort of grudge against Young Won, given his harsh tone. Young Won walked home alone, Ja Sung trailing behind in his car. He invited her to dinner, but she declined, saying she was in a bad mood. It had been a terrible day, a ripped dress, unpaid rent, and a canceled dinner. Dejected, she stopped at a convenience store for a snack. Guillaume happened to be there. Seeing her downcast, he invited her on an impromptu camping trip. She agreed. Then, she received a text from the superintendent. Her apartment was ready. She knew Ja Sung had lied to spend more time with her. Feeling guilty about relying on him so much, she quietly moved back to her apartment. When Ja Sung arrived home, he found her gone. Assuming his harsh words had driven her away, he collapsed onto his bed, miserable and filled with self-reproach. Unable to bear it any longer, he went to her apartment. As soon as she opened the door, he burst into tears, convinced she was breaking up with him. Young Won explained she'd been avoiding him because she was embarrassed about not being able to pay her rent. Ja Sung checked his phone and found her text message about the unpaid rent. Relieved she wasn't dumping him, he cheered up. But Young Won felt like a failure, unworthy of someone as successful and wealthy as him. As Ja Sung was about to comfort her, the doorbell rang. It was Yui Ju. Young Won quickly shoved Ja Sung into her closet and opened the door. Yui Ju, dressed impeccably, entered, carrying a six-pack of beer. She explained that Ja Sung had tricked her into attending a film festival that had already happened the day before. She'd shown up like an idiot, believing him. She raged about Ja Sung being a deceitful jerk. Trapped in the closet, Ja Sung cringed, listening to her rant. Unable to defend himself, he sent her an apologetic text. Yui Ju, upon seeing the message, only became angrier, yelling about how an apology was useless now. She then went to the bathroom, giving Young Won a chance to free Ja Sung from his cramped confinement. Before leaving, Ja Sung kissed Young Won on the forehead, reassuring her that she was amazing, worthy of him, and shouldn't worry. Young Won smiled, her heart fluttering. Meanwhile, The editor-in-chief and Sang Soon were having dinner together. The editor-in-chief was laying it on thick, flattering Sang Soon, hoping he could connect him with a renowned math tutor for his daughter through Sang Soon's girlfriend. Sang Soon realized the tutor the editor-in-chief was referring to was the man he'd seen with his girlfriend. The editor-in-chief continued, mentioning how close his girlfriend seemed to be with the tutor, to the point that people mistook them for a couple. Sang Soon realized he was being cheated on. He declined to help the editor-in-chief. The editor-in-chief, misunderstanding, assumed he was being unhelpful and stormed off, leaving Sang Soon to foot the bill. The next day at work, the editor-in-chief was furious with Sang Soon, demanding the return of the wedding coupons. Yui Ju and the others were puzzled by his anger. Yui Ju, after questioning him, learned the truth. She tried to persuade the editor-in-chief to let it go, but he remained stubbornly angry. During a meeting where Sang Soon presented his ideas, the editor-in-chief was dismissive and critical. But just as Sang Soon finished his presentation, a text message from his girlfriend appeared on the screen, breaking up with him and revealing she was seeing someone else. The editor-in-chief finally understood Sang Soon's distracted behavior and apologized, offering words of comfort. Sang Soon, however, still clung to the hope of salvaging the relationship. The editor-in-chief, filled with regret, confided in Yui Ju, who pointed out that she had warned him. Just then, Yui Ju received a marriage proposal text from her boyfriend. She closed her phone without replying. Although she loved him, she didn't want to get married, so she decided to break up with him. Then, she received a text reminding her about her rent. It turned out her boyfriend hadn't paid it. Clicking on his profile, she saw a picture of a beautiful young woman. She realized he'd likely moved on. After work, Sang Soon went to a bar to drown his sorrows. He tried to talk to his girlfriend to win her back, but she'd bluntly told him she didn't love him. She didn't like that he was poor, and she refused to live in a small apartment. Sang Soon was heartbroken. He'd worked so hard for that new apartment, and now, just as he was about to propose, she'd left him. Meanwhile, Ja Sung and Young Won were on a business trip to Gangwon province. They stopped at a temple to pray. Ja Sung noticed Young Won's injured heel and offered to carry her, but she was shy, worried about drawing attention. He encouraged her, saying they had to hide their relationship at work, so they might as well be open about it elsewhere. Young Won happily buried her face in his shoulder. Later, they went to lunch. Ja Sung suggested shrimp, unaware of Young Won's allergy. He tried to feed her some, but she kept dodging. Finally, unable to hide it any longer, she confessed her allergy. Ja Sung wanted to take her to a different restaurant, but Young Won insisted on returning to work to finish some tasks. As he dropped her off, Ja Sung apologized for not being more considerate. It was his first real relationship, and he was still learning. Young Won reassured him that she'd had a wonderful time, and he shouldn't blame himself. But Ja Sung, still feeling guilty, promised to do better next time. Touched by his sincerity, Young Won impulsively kissed him on the cheek, leaving him speechless. She told him he was the first person to make her feel so happy, and then hurried off, leaving Ja Sung in a blissful daze. He returned to the office. At the entrance, he noticed Gyeom's car trunk was ajar. Thinking it was careless, he went to close it, but he saw the designer bag from the auction inside. Jang Chan arrived just in time to shield the bag, claiming the car was being repaired. Gyeom rushed over, quickly changing the subject, mentioning that Young Won was working late. Ja Sung pretended not to know, then entered the building as if nothing had happened. Jang Chan berated Gyeom. If it weren't for him, Ja Sung would have discovered his feelings for Young Won. Later, driving Young Won home, Ja Sung realized she still called him director. Now that they were dating, he felt they should be less formal. Young Won, taking a deep breath, called him Ja Sung. They both blushed. He responded by calling her Young Won. She beamed. Back in her apartment, she replayed the moment in her mind, a mix of shyness and joy. The next day, they comfortably addressed each other by name at work. After work, Ja Sung invited Young Won to dinner, but she declined, wanting to avoid gossip. Sang Soon was absent. Everyone knew he was heartbroken. He was home, listlessly eating breakfast, when his mother brought out a new suit she'd bought for his wedding. Sang Soon sadly told her they'd broken up. His mother, misinterpreting, accused him of cheating, and insisted he apologize to his girlfriend, reminding him that she'd waited for him for over 3 years. Sang Soon didn't respond, retreating to his room. At the office, Young Won accidentally addressed Ja Sung informally in front of everyone. Her colleagues stared, stunned. To save her from embarrassment, Ja Sung claimed he'd asked her to call him by his name, and suggested everyone adopt a more casual, friendly form of address. During the meeting, everyone awkwardly attempted informal speech, dropping honorifics. The editor-in-chief, uncomfortable with the sudden shift, suggested reverting to the formal style. Ja Sung readily agreed. His suggestion had only been a ruse to protect Young Won. Ja Sung proposed a 2-day volunteer trip to Gangwon Province, secretly hoping for a getaway with Young Won. However, she couldn't go due to a prior work commitment. Flustered, Ja Sung also backed out, claiming a sudden scheduling conflict. Everyone was suspicious of the convenient coincidence. After the meeting, Young Won apologized to Ja Sung for almost exposing their relationship. She suggested a movie that night, having cleared her schedule to spend time with him. Ja Sung was overjoyed, feeling their love blossom. However, that evening, they ran into Yui Ju at the cinema. Ja Sung, spotting her first, warned Young Won via text. Young Won texted Yui Ju, asking for help. Yui Ju quickly excused herself, not wanting to be a third wheel. As she was leaving, she bumped into Young Won, surprised to see her there. Young Won claimed she'd planned to see the movie with a friend, who'd canceled at the last minute. Yui Ju dragged her off for drinks, despite Young Won's protests. Ja Sung watched the movie alone, blaming Yui Ju for ruining his romantic date. Young Won informed him that due to a schedule change, she had to join the volunteer trip to Gangwon Province the next day. Ja Sung was dismayed. He'd already backed out, and joining now would raise suspicions. The next day, the team arrived in Gangwon Province. The editor-in-chief was relieved not to see Ja Sung. Just then, Ja Sung's car pulled up. He announced his schedule had cleared, and he'd decided to join them. The editor-in-chief, though disappointed, feigned enthusiasm. Young Won whispered, asking why he was there. He replied that he missed her and wanted to see her every day. Yui Ju, overhearing their whispers, turned to look. Ja Sung immediately switched to loudly criticizing Young Won to deflect suspicion. Yui Ju thought he was being unreasonable, advising Young Won not to be so passive and let him bully her. During the volunteer work, they split into smaller groups. Young Won ended up with Yui Ju, while Ja Sung was paired with the editor-in-chief. Ja Sung longed to be with Young Won, but had no excuse to switch groups, resorting to watching her from afar. He and the editor-in-chief were tasked with moving large jars of soy sauce. Due to his age, the editor-in-chief threw out his back while trying to move a jar and was out of commission. Ja Sung was left to move the remaining jars alone. He'd envisioned a romantic getaway with Young Won, but it had turned into hard labor. At lunchtime, the editor-in-chief wanted to shop for groceries to cook, but his back wouldn't cooperate. Ja Sung quickly volunteered to go with Young Won. Yui Ju, worried that Ja Sung would mistreat Young Won, insisted on going in her place. At the supermarket, Yui Ju warned Ja Sung against giving Young Won a hard time. Ja Sung thought to himself that if they weren't hiding their relationship, he'd be showering her with affection. Meanwhile, back at the office, Jang Chan, Gyeom, and Sang Soon were working together. Jang Chan, concerned about Sang Soon, asked if he was okay. Sang Soon tried to act tough, but his vacant expression spoke volumes. During lunch, Sang Soon, lost in thought, dipped his hand into a scalding hot bowl of soup. His hand quickly turned red, but he seemed unfazed. Jang Chan accidentally bumped the table, spilling the hot soup onto Sang Soon, who remained remarkably calm, remarking that physical pain might distract him from his heartbreak. Jang Chan and Gyeom were worried but unsure how to help. On the drive to Gangwon Province, Sang Soon wallowed in self-pity and negativity. Gyeom and Jang Chan's attempts to cheer him up were futile. When they passed a lake, Sang Soon demanded to be let out. Worried he might be suicidal, they followed him, only to find him simply staring forlornly at the water. They then continued their journey to join the volunteer effort. Upon arriving, Gyeom's attention immediately focused on Young Won, while Mero, harboring a secret crush on him after he'd helped her hide at the company, rushed to help him with his luggage. Meanwhile, Jang Chan, touched by the chocolate Mero had given him earlier, mistakenly believed she was interested in him. Young Won and Ja Sung felt awkward hiding their relationship from Yui Ju. They decided to find an opportunity to tell her. However, the timing couldn't have been worse. Just 2 days after their breakup, Yui Ju's ex had flaunted his new girlfriend online. Furious, she vowed to be hostile towards any happy couple. Young Won and Ja Sung, overhearing this, decided against revealing their relationship. Young Won called Ja Sung, suggesting they postpone telling Yui Ju, but the person on the other end of the line remained silent. Looking out the window, she saw Ja Sung strolling outside, phoneless. Who had answered his phone? She mentally went through the list of people present, trying to identify the mystery person, but drew a blank. Young Won suspected Yui Ju was the most likely culprit. Suddenly, Yui Ju called Young Won aside for a private conversation. Young Won braced herself, assuming her secret was out, but Yui Ju was upset about Young Won changing rooms without her permission. Ja Sung, overhearing this, mistakenly believed their relationship had been discovered, and rushed to Young Won's defense. He indignantly asked what was wrong with them dating. Ju was completely bewildered, while Young Won face-palmed, unable to stop Ja Sung's blurted confession. It turned out the person who'd answered Ja Sung's phone was the homeowner, not Ju. Now, Young Won and Ja Sung faced Ju's confused interrogation. She sat on a raised step, looking down at them as they stood below, heads bowed. Ju recalled all the times she'd awkwardly inserted herself between them, then burst into laughter, feeling like a fool. Despite their attempts to explain, Ju remained unconvinced and walked away. Young Won wanted to follow her, but Ja Sung stopped her, promising to smooth things over. At dinner, everyone noticed Ju's strange behavior. She kept muttering about someone calling her difficult and impossible to live with. Young Won and Ja Sung exchanged guilty glances. After dinner, they played a game involving an anonymous chat room. Ju used the anonymity to publicly allude to Young Won and Ja Sung's relationship. In reality, Ju wasn't truly angry, just a little hurt that Young Won had kept it a secret. She was mostly teasing them, but seeing Young Won's genuinely upset and apologetic face, she decided to drop the act, offering her sincere congratulations. Young Won was touched. This was the first time she truly understood the meaning of friendship. She rushed back to tell Ja Sung the good news. He smugly assumed it was due to his persuasive skills. Young Won played along, praising his ability to convince people, further inflating his ego. She wanted to go to bed, but Ja Sung wanted to spend more time together. Young Won, charmed by his awkward eagerness, smiled and kissed him on the cheek. But for Ja Sung, that wasn't enough. He pulled her close and kissed her passionately. Reluctantly, they finally went to their separate rooms. Ja Sung, however, wasn't ready for sleep. He joined Guillaume for a beer on the patio. Guillaume noticed his good mood, observing his constant smiling. Ja Sung, in turn, commented on Guillaume's cheerful demeanor. Guillaume admitted he was about to confess his feelings to his crush. They both chuckled, thinking about Young Won, each unaware the other was referring to the same woman. The next day, back at the office, as they were arranging rides home, Ju announced that Young Won and Ja Sung had things to discuss, and should drive back together. The editor-in-chief thought Ju was incredibly cruel for making Young Won ride home with Ja Sung, predicting a potential earful for the poor girl. Ju just smirked, not explaining. On the drive, Young Won told Ja Sung that Ju felt bad about interfering with their relationship, and, as a peace offering, had given her a bottle of wine and a small gift for him. Ja Sung suggested they go back to his place to drink it, and slightly flustered. Young Won agreed. They settled in to watch a romantic movie while enjoying the wine. When the lead characters kissed, both Young Won and Ja Sung became incredibly embarrassed. Thankfully, a call from Ju broke the awkward tension. Realizing Young Won was at Ja Sung's place, Ju didn't want to interrupt further, only reminding Ja Sung to pay attention to the gift she'd sent. Young Won then remembered Ju had asked her to give it to him. When Ja Sung opened the box, he discovered it contained a sex toy, amplifying the awkwardness tenfold. Ja Sung started spiraling into a dark fantasy, only snapping back to reality when Young Won called his name. She was saying goodbye and heading home. Ja Sung, jolted awake from his daydream, felt a fresh wave of embarrassment. Elsewhere, Guillaume confided in Jang Chan that he was ready to confess his feelings to Young Won. Even if she rejected him, he wouldn't give up and would patiently wait for her to reciprocate. The next day at work, Ja Sung announced a last-minute change to a meeting, moving it from the following morning to that afternoon. The editor-in-chief protested, pointing out everyone had already made arrangements based on the original schedule. Ja Sung dismissed her concerns, claiming he was busy too, and couldn't be expected to rearrange his schedule for everyone else. The flustered editor-in-chief reluctantly agreed. The sudden schedule change threw the entire office into chaos as everyone scrambled to prepare their reports. Ju even had to cancel a dermatology appointment she'd waited a month for. Everyone grumbled about Ja Sung's selfishness and inconsideration. Ju was about to join the chorus of complaints, but stopped herself, remembering Young Won was dating him. The editor-in-chief reminded everyone that the next day was Ja Sung's birthday. No one felt like celebrating. Only Young Won thought they should do something small, since he was their boss after all. But the others remained adamant. Understanding Young Won's predicament, Ju went to talk to Ja Sung. She warned him against acting so selfishly and making himself so unpopular. Young Won felt heartbroken hearing everyone badmouth her boyfriend. As a good friend, Ju hated seeing her upset. Ja Sung, however, bristled at Ju's lecture. Meanwhile, Young Won and Jaeom discussed what to get Ja Sung for his birthday. Jaeom mentioned he was planning to get him the latest tablet. Ja Sung typically didn't celebrate his birthday anyway, always too busy with work. Young Won remarked on how kind Jaeom was to Ja Sung, even mentioning how he'd once saved Ja Sung from fainting. Jaeom was surprised she knew this, as it was something only he and Ja Sung shared. He explained that Ja Sung had also been kind to him. Back in high school, Jaeom's father, disapproving of his photography dreams, had smashed his beloved camera. Ja Sung, witnessing the scene and understanding Jaeom's devastation, bought him a new, expensive camera. It had taken him 2 months of tutoring wages to save up for it. Ja Sung had simply said it was okay, that he admired Jaeom's passion. Jaeom was deeply touched to finally have someone support his dreams. As Ja Sung was leaving work, he saw everyone busily preparing for the next day's meeting. Recalling Yuiju's words, he felt a pang of guilt. He apologized to everyone and announced he was treating them to lunch and postponing the meeting until the following day to give them more time to prepare. This gesture, however, didn't quite land as intended, leaving some feeling like Ja Sung was toying with them. During lunch, Ja Sung pointedly gave everyone a piece of potato from the stew. They all assumed he didn't like potatoes and was therefore offering them up. In reality, he loved them, especially the potatoes in this particular stew, but he wanted to appear considerate. Unfortunately, his attempt at generosity missed the mark. He wished Yuiju a happy marriage soon, completely oblivious to her constant declarations of being a staunch non-marriage advocate. He then congratulated Sang Soon on winning a house, assuming he'd be getting married soon, unaware that Sang Soon had just gone through a breakup. Meanwhile, Young Won, Jang Chan, and Gyeom were interviewing a famous couple known for their close bond, even nicknamed the Two Hearts Beating as One couple. During the interview, however, Young Won noticed some inconsistencies. They fumbled seemingly simple questions about each other, raising red flags. Young Won also accidentally let slip that she had a boyfriend, surprising both Gyeom and Jang Chan, especially since Gyeom was planning to confess his feelings to her that weekend. Back at the office, the editor-in-chief urged Young Won to edit the interview and publish it immediately, but Young Won felt uneasy about the couple's strange behavior. The editor-in-chief brushed off her concerns, telling her not to overthink it and just follow standard procedure. Young Won reluctantly complied. During a meeting, the editor-in-chief asked for ideas for an article about a popular app. Everyone agreed on a dating app, which the editor-in-chief admitted to not understanding, being too old to use such things. He tasked Yuiju with creating a dating app profile for research purposes. Yuiju, however, suggested Sang Soon take on the assignment, hoping it would help him find someone new and get over his recent heartbreak. The editor-in-chief thought it was a brilliant idea, but little did he know, Sang Soon spent the entire day on the dating app with 0 messages. Feeling utterly rejected and dejected, he burst into tears. The editor-in-chief, realizing this wasn't going as planned, quickly reassigned the task to Yuiju. Seeing Sang Soon's despondent state, Ja Sung felt a pang of guilt for not being more attuned to his colleague's feelings. Just then, Gyeom approached Ja Sung, asking for help finding a house. Ja Sung knew instantly this meant Gyeom was interested in someone, having previously suggested he buy a place multiple times, only to be met with refusal. A blushing Gyeom admitted he wanted to have a place to bring someone special. Ja Sung was thrilled for him, happy to see his friend finally smitten. The editor-in-chief, wondering why Young Won hadn't published the interview yet, went to check on her. Young Won insisted they shouldn't run it, sensing it would cause controversy. The editor-in-chief dismissed her concerns, adamant that it be published immediately. Just then, a phone notification came through, and the editor-in-chief's face paled as he read the message. It turned out the celebrity couple's love was a complete sham, fabricated for advertising deals. A video of them fighting had gone viral, and the newsroom was now instructing them to pull the interview. The editor-in-chief, realizing Young Won's intuition had been spot on, thanked her for her diligence. Young Won explained that she had noticed subtle inconsistencies in their behavior, leading her to suspect their relationship was fake. The house they'd visited was the wife's. The husband's belongings all seemed brand new, and he'd appeared unfamiliar with the surroundings, even struggling to find a glass for water. Meanwhile, Jang Chan mistakenly believed Mi-ra had a crush on him, when in fact, she was interested in Gyeom. He asked a mutual colleague what Mi-ra liked about this mystery man. The colleague described the guy's appearance, which Jang Chan thought perfectly matched himself, leading him to walk off in a blissful haze, completely missing the colleague's attempts to clarify that it wasn't him. Yuiju and Sang Soon were out drinking together. Seeing Sang Soon's low self-esteem, Yuiju showered him with compliments, assuring him he was a great guy, and would find someone much better than his ex. Her words genuinely lifted his spirits. He drank heavily, becoming quite drunk, forcing Yuiju to help him up and go get him some medicine. In his drunken stupor, Sang-soon mistook Yuiju's kindness for romantic interest, and exasperated Yuiju retorted that she would never be interested in someone like him. She was aiming for someone much wealthier than her ex. Sang-soon, convinced she was just being shy, refused to believe her. Finally, at her wit's end, Yuiju slapped him and stormed off. As Ja-sung drove Young-won home, he asked her how she'd seen through the celebrity couple's facade. Young-won replied that you can tell a lot about someone by their home. Ja-sung chuckled, impressed by her perceptiveness and thoughtfulness. At that very moment, Yaeom was waiting for Young-won to return home so he could confess his feelings. He watched in stunned silence as she stepped out of Ja-sung's car, and they shared a warm embrace. Even Jang Chan, standing beside him, was taken aback. The next day at the office, everyone secretly prepared a surprise birthday celebration for Ja-sung. He indifferently blew out the candles and returned to his office, leaving everyone feeling a little foolish for their efforts. However, moments later, they all received thank you messages and gifts from Ja-sung. He had thoughtfully chosen practical gifts they actually wanted, prompting everyone to praise his generosity and attentiveness. Young-won, overhearing the compliments directed at her boyfriend, beamed with pride. Ja-sung met with Gaeom, who, still reeling from the previous night's events, initially maintained a cool demeanor, but quickly warmed up and presented Ja-sung with a gift. Ja-sung mentioned he'd found some promising houses for Gaeom, but Gaeom declined, saying he wouldn't be buying a house after all. Ja-sung teased him, suggesting he must not be that serious about this woman. Gaeom awkwardly admitted that it was the case, deciding to focus on his work instead. Jang Chan admired Gaeom's maturity and respect for their relationship, choosing to support Ja-sung and Young-won. Gaeom tried to appear unaffected, but later, alone, he drank to numb the pain. Back at the office, Ja-sung eagerly anticipated leaving work to celebrate his birthday with Young-won. However, she texted him saying she had a last-minute work emergency and wouldn't be able to make it. Disappointed, he headed home alone, but upon entering his apartment, he was greeted by a beautifully decorated birthday surprise. Young-won emerged with a cake, revealing she'd faked the work emergency to surprise him. Ja-sung was overjoyed. The happiness was short-lived, however. Ja-sung received a call, informing him that Gaeom had been in an accident. He rushed to the hospital. Jang Chan explained that Gaeom had been drinking heavily, and then drove, leading to the accident. Ja-sung was confused as to why Gaeom would drink so much. Jang Chan finally revealed Gaeom's feelings for Young-won, and how, respecting their relationship, he'd kept them bottled up. Young-won, waiting at home and growing concerned, called Ja-sung. He stared at the incoming call, unable to answer, his mind in turmoil. He returned to Gaeom's room, looking at his injured friend, overwhelmed with guilt. Right then, Gaeom woke up. He lied, saying he'd had too much to drink while catching up with old friends. Hearing this, Ja-sung felt even guiltier. Finally, he called Young-won back and revealed that Gaeom had been in a car accident, and he was taking care of him. Later, Ja-sung went to Gaeom's place to grab him some clothes to bring to the hospital. There, he happened to see a designer shopping bag. It dawned on Ja-sung how well Gaeom had been hiding his struggles, always putting others before himself. Everyone at the office knew about Gaeom's accident. Sang-soon criticized Gaeom for not knowing his limits with alcohol, implying that's why the accident happened. Everyone else immediately spoke up, disagreeing with Sang-soon, arguing he had no right to judge, since he also couldn't control his drinking. Yuiju was the one who told everyone how Sang-soon becomes a real mess when he's drunk. Sang-soon turned to apologize to Yuiju, but she brushed him off, pretending not to know him. The editor-in-chief arranged for Yuiju and Sang-soon to have dinner together to resolve their conflict. But the moment Yuiju saw Sang-soon, she turned and walked away, even leaving her jacket behind. Meanwhile, Young-won, having heard about Gaeom's accident, visited him at the hospital. As soon as she walked in, Gaeom's expression brightened considerably. Young-won encouraged him, hoping he would recover soon. Gaeom said they wouldn't be able to continue their convenience store partnership, since work had been hectic recently, and he was injured on top of that. Young-won cheerfully replied that it was okay, as long as he was happy. Ja-sung stood by, watching them talk, feeling a deep pang of guilt. Gaeom urged Young-won and Ja-sung to go have dinner together, since Ja-sung hadn't eaten anything while taking care of him. The two said goodbye to Gaeom and left for dinner. He went back to retrieve it, but as he reached the door, he saw Gaeom sitting dejectedly, staring at the flowers Young-won had brought. This saddened Ja-sung even more, solidifying his resolve to do something. During dinner with Young-won, Ja Sung suggested they break up. He lied, saying that his work was demanding, and her presence was a distraction, preventing him from focusing on his goals. He claimed he wasn't cut out for relationships, believing they were a waste of his time. Young Won was confused and taken aback, completely bewildered by his sudden change of heart. Just as she was about to ask him why he was acting this way, Ja Sung abruptly stood up and left. He sat in his car, agonizing over the words he had just spoken. Young Won called him, but he didn't answer. Saddened, she sat alone, drinking. The next morning, Young Won woke up in Ja Sung's house. She remembered the previous night. After getting incredibly drunk, she had gone to Ja Sung's place and made a scene. Mortified by the memory, she decided to leave discreetly. But then she saw a note stuck to the front door. Ja Sung's note told her never to repeat the embarrassing behavior from the night before. Young Won, feeling dejected, headed to work. In the office, Sang Soon arrived, dancing around excitedly, because he'd received news that his house was going to increase in value. He snidely remarked that now that he was a man of means, he didn't need to bother with insignificant friendships anymore, then glanced pointedly at Yui Ju. Yui Ju, furious beyond words, stormed off to the storage room to compose herself. There, she stumbled upon Young Won, huddled in a corner, crying. Yui Ju, bewildered, asked what was wrong. Young Won revealed that Ja Sung had just stumped her. Yui Ju was instantly enraged, wanting to teach Ja Sung a lesson on Young Won's behalf. But Young Won stopped her. Yui Ju warned Young Won not to do anything embarrassing, like going to Ja Sung's place and begging him to take her back. Unfortunately, Young Won confessed that she had already gone to his place and made a scene the previous night. Yui Ju comforted her and took her out for chicken soup to help her forget her heartache. Coincidentally, they ran into Ja Sung and Jaeom at the restaurant. Jaeom suggested they all eat together. During the meal, Yui Ju deliberately needled Ja Sung for dumping Young Won, while Jaeom remained oblivious to the tension. Ja Sung, though he heard Yui Ju's jabs, seemed unfazed, even eating with gusto. Young Won, on the other hand, hadn't touched her food. Jaeom, concerned, asked why she wasn't eating. Young Won, embarrassed, tried to act normal and started picking at her food. After the meal, Yui Ju berated Ja Sung for being a terrible guy. Young Won, silently beside her, couldn't say a word, consumed by her pain. Back at the office, Young Won brought a report to Ja Sung and apologized for her drunken behavior the night before. She also asked him to be cold to her from now on, so she could move on more easily. As Young Won left, Ja Sung's mood darkened. He recalled the previous night, carrying a drunken Young Won to his bed, his heart torn with conflicting emotions. He'd been about to leave when she grabbed his hand. Remembering this, he sighed sadly, realizing he was still deeply in love with her. At a staff meeting, the editor-in-chief praised Young Won's writing abilities and suggested she be allowed to write independently. Instead of following Ja Sung's directives and scripts, Ja Sung agreed that it was a good idea. He told Young Won that she wouldn't need to work with him anymore, and asked the editor-in-chief to find her a replacement on his team. Yui Ju comforted Young Won, saying it was for the best. Less contact with Ja Sung would make it easier to move on. Young Won silently nodded and left. Yui Ju, watching her go, felt worried for her. Just then, Yui Ju received a call from Gyeom, asking what was going on between Young Won and Ja Sung. Yui Ju revealed they had broken up, and that the editor-in-chief was going to replace Young Won on Ja Sung's team. Upon hearing this, Gyeom immediately went to confront Ja Sung. Ja Sung bluntly admitted that he broke up with Young Won because he felt a relationship was too time-consuming, preventing him from focusing on his work. Gyeom called him a terrible person and stormed off in anger. The editor-in-chief had his first work session with Ja Sung, now that Young Won was no longer on his team. Ja Sung complimented the editor-in-chief on his knowledge of real estate terminology. The editor-in-chief admitted it was all thanks to Young Won. She had urged him to learn the terms so he could write the best possible articles. Ja Sung reflected on how dedicated Young Won had been to their work together. He then absent-mindedly called the editor-in-chief Young Won, a clear sign he hadn't yet moved on. Meanwhile, back at the office, Sang Soon was moping. Yui Ju, seeing him, assumed he was regretting the cost of treating everyone to dinner the previous night, thinking he was being stingy. Later, however, after overhearing Sang Soon's conversation with the editor-in-chief, Yui Ju learned the real reason for his distress. He couldn't afford the down payment on the new house he'd won. Sang Soon asked the editor-in-chief for a loan, but he explained that his wife controlled the finances, so he couldn't lend him the money. The editor-in-chief suggested that Sang Soon ask Yui Ju for a loan, but Sang Soon, remembering his embarrassing behavior towards her, felt too ashamed to face her. Yui Ju, however, quietly transferred the money to Sang Soon's account. He was deeply embarrassed and awkwardly thanked her. Meanwhile, everywhere Young Won looked, she saw Ja Sung's name and face. Everything reminded her of him. Jang Chan, on the other hand, was mortified to learn that Mira's affections were directed towards Gyeom, not him. Earlier, Mira had brought Gyeom a homemade lunch, but Jang Chan mistakenly believed it was for him and ate it all, even leaving a note suggesting they go on a date. When the lunchbox was returned to Mira, Jang Chan raced to her office, even twisting his ankle in the process, to retrieve the note. This bewildered Mira, who couldn't understand his strange behavior. Back at his apartment, Ja Sung saw a figure in the darkness. When he turned on the light, he saw Young Won. He told her to leave him alone, but she replied that he was the one who called her there. These words jolted him awake. It had all been a dream. Young Won, also dreaming, suddenly woke up after falling off her sofa. She looked around her messy apartment and told herself she needed to pull herself together. Seeing Young Won's low spirits, Yui Ju invited her on a trip to help her clear her head. Sang Soon and Gyeom joined them. Ja Sung, equally unhappy, spent his weekend working at the office to distract himself. He moved his desk from place to place, but he couldn't concentrate. His thoughts kept returning to Young Won. The editor-in-chief tried to help him move his desk, but Ja Sung snapped at him. Defeated, the editor-in-chief returned to his own desk to work on a draft, but he felt completely uninspired and increasingly stressed by having to work with Ja Sung. The editor-in-chief cursed Ja Sung under his breath. Suddenly, he felt a chill down his spine. Turning around, he saw that Ja Sung had, without him noticing, moved his desk right behind him. The editor-in-chief nearly fainted from fright. A little while later, he heard a commotion in the archive room. He went to investigate and found books scattered all over the floor, with Ja Sung meticulously reorganizing them. The editor-in-chief, though puzzled by this sudden urge to rearrange, offered to help. Ja Sung snapped, saying he wanted to do it alone, and told him never to interfere with his affairs. After finishing with the books, Ja Sung started cleaning everything in the office. The editor-in-chief found his behavior increasingly bizarre. Suddenly, Ja Sung accidentally dropped a glass. The editor-in-chief rushed to help clean up the shards, but Ja Sung insisted he didn't need help, then carelessly picked up a piece of broken glass, cutting his hand. The editor-in-chief helped him treat the wound, and asked if he was trying to distract himself from something. Ja Sung was about to deny it, when he noticed the editor-in-chief had seen the book on his desk titled, "Keep Your Body Active to Forget Quickly." The editor-in-chief, now understanding, offered comforting words, assuring Ja Sung that time would heal his wounds. Meanwhile, Young Won was enjoying her outing with Yui Ju, Gyeom, and Sang Soon. The fresh air lifted her spirits slightly. Sang Soon suddenly mentioned that the villa they were staying at was the one Ja Sung had recommended to Gyeom's parents. Yui Ju frantically signaled for him to stop, but he missed her cues and continued talking. Not wanting to make things awkward, Young Won complimented Ja Sung's good taste. Afterwards, feeling a wave of sadness, she excused herself to the restroom. On her way out, she overheard Yui Ju and Gyeom talking. She realized they had orchestrated this trip out of concern for her well-being. Grateful for their caring friendship, she rejoined the group. They played games and laughed together. Seeing Young Won smile genuinely, Gyeom finally felt relieved. Yui Ju and Gyeom thought their plan was working, but only Young Won knew the truth. She wasn't okay at all. She just wanted to go home and cry to release her pent-up emotions. Here, in front of her friends, she couldn't allow herself to cry. It would only worry them more. Young Won stepped outside to take a call from her mother. After hanging up, she looked up at the sky. Thoughts of Ja Sung flooding her mind. Tears she could no longer contain streamed down her face. Meanwhile, Ja Sung sat alone in his apartment, silently crying. Despite his outward rejection of her, he still loved Young Won deeply. Both Ja Sung and Young Won's emotional states continued to deteriorate. Since the breakup, Young Won had been in a daze, lacking the motivation to even go to work. Ja Sung, too, had lost interest in real estate investing, his former passion. At the office, the editor-in-chief discovered that Myra had been living at the company. He told Myra that she needed to be careful, as the office wasn't a safe place to live, and she should find a new place soon. Suddenly, Ja Sung appeared, startling them. Myra was relieved he hadn't overheard their conversation. Otherwise, he'd definitely make her pay for the utilities she'd been using. Meanwhile, Sang Soon was developing feelings for Yui Ju. During a meeting, he was so preoccupied with thoughts of her that he couldn't focus. Yui Ju pinched his cheek to snap him out of it, but this only made him more flustered, his heart pounding in his chest. He excused himself and rushed to the restroom to compose himself. Standing in front of the mirror, Sang Soon admitted to himself that he was falling for Yui Ju. Young Won returned home after work to find her apartment a complete mess. Earlier that day, Mira had told her that she was her role model, so Young Won resolved to get her act together and become the amazing woman Myra saw in her. She rolled up her sleeves and started cleaning, determined to return to her hardworking, dedicated self. Jaeom, seeing her renewed determination, was delighted. At that day's meeting, the editor-in-chief wasn't supportive of Young Won's proposal, but Ja Sung spoke up, saying he wanted to give her a chance, and approved it. Young Won went to Ja Sung's office to submit her draft and thanked him for his confidence in her. She then told him to treat her casually, like he used to, because no matter how kind he was to her, now her feelings for him were gone. With that, she coolly walked away, leaving Ja Sung staring after her. Back at his apartment, Ja Sung stumbled upon the keychain Young Won had given him. Unable to resist, he reminisced about their happy memories. The next day, Jang Chan took Young Won to his current living quarters, the rooftop of an old apartment building. He explained that he chose it for the cheap rent, despite its inconveniences. Young Won shared some tips for rooftop living, having experienced it herself. Jang Chan was grateful for her practical advice. Later, Young Won also visited her assistant's home for an interview and to offer survival tips. To her surprise, her assistant already knew all the tricks and even had better solutions than Young Won. Meanwhile, Ja Sung and the editor-in-chief were on a business trip when the editor-in-chief received a text message. His landlord had appendicitis. He needed to return home, but Ja Sung didn't want to go back to the office. He wanted to go somewhere to clear his head. The editor-in-chief suggested a few mood-boosting activities. First, they tried a luxurious meal at a high-end restaurant. While the editor-in-chief enjoyed his food with gusto, Ja Sung put down his fork after a few bites. This clearly wasn't working. Their next stop was an expensive clothing store. The editor-in-chief believed that putting on expensive clothes and admiring his handsome reflection would instantly improve his mood. Ja Sung tried it but remained glum. The editor-in-chief, however, thoroughly enjoyed trying on the clothes, thrilled to experience such luxury for the first time. Seeing his happiness, Ja Sung pulled out his wallet and bought him everything he'd tried on. Next, they moved on to the next mood-boosting activity, a trip to Jeju Island, suggested by the editor-in-chief. Ja Sung booked first-class tickets for both of them. The editor-in-chief, puzzled by Ja Sung's generosity, asked why he was being so kind. Ja Sung confessed that seeing the editor-in-chief happy made him feel better. Perhaps, he mused, giving was the key to happiness. He leaned back in his seat, feeling his spirits lift slightly. Back at the office, Sang-soon was grappling with his feelings for Yui Ju, whom he considered a frivolous spender. She had even ordered 3 identical shirts, differing only slightly in size and material, with one being completely identical to the one she was wearing. She gave the identical shirt to Myra, claiming she had accidentally ordered it twice. Sang-soon was convinced he must be blind to be falling for such a spendthrift. Yui Ju asked Sang-soon if she and Myra looked good in their matching shirts. Startled and flustered, Sang-soon couldn't face her and fled. Myra then showed Yui Ju something on her phone, suggesting it might be the reason for Sang-soon's odd behavior. That evening, Young Won was working late at the office when Jaeom approached her and invited her to dinner. Young Won told him he didn't need to worry about her anymore. She was over her heartbreak. Jaeom then confessed his feelings for her. The confession lifted a weight off his shoulders. Young Won was stunned. She recalled Jaeom's past words and actions, realizing he had been subtly expressing his feelings all along, but she had been too oblivious to notice. Now she felt a mix of anxiety and uncertainty about how to face him. The editor-in-chief returned home, proudly showing off his new expensive clothes to his wife. She sarcastically retorted that if his boss cared so much, he should ask for a raise instead. Annoyed, she went to their bedroom. The editor-in-chief noticed some real estate papers on his wife's desk. He saw the Dami-dong investment project, the same one Ja Sung was investing in. He mistakenly assumed Ja Sung was trying to bribe him for favorable treatment on the project. He went to the office and confronted Ja Sung. Upon hearing this accusation, Ja Sung decided to pull out of the investment and demanded the editor-in-chief repay him for all the meals, clothes, and the Jeju trip. The editor-in-chief, panicked by the thought of the enormous sum, apologized profusely. But Ja Sung remained indifferent. Elsewhere, Yui Ju was trying to set Sang-soon up with different women, but he kept finding excuses to reject them. One woman's hair was too short and another wasn't tall enough. It became clear he was looking for someone just like Yui Ju. But Yui Ju didn't get it, storming off in frustration, thinking Sang-soon was just being picky. Finally, Sang-soon agreed to go on a date with the person Yui Ju recommended. In reality, he wanted to tell Yui Ju that he liked her, which is why he didn't want to date anyone else. That night, Sang-soon went on a date with Yui Ju's friend. However, throughout the entire date, He kept bringing up Ju, which made his date a little uncomfortable. She asked him if he liked Ju. Sang-soon still denied it. His date, feeling disrespected, angrily left. Meanwhile, Young-won had gone out of her way to find a good place for Myra to stay. But Myra told her that Ja-sung had already helped her find one. Myra praised Ja-sung, saying he seemed cold on the outside but was actually warm and caring. Young-won's expression flickered. That was one of the reasons she had fallen for him too. Young-won retreated to the archive room again, sitting lost in thought. Ju came in and said she'd introduce Young-won to a new guy so she could forget Ja-sung. But Young-won suddenly burst into tears, admitting that no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't ignore him. Jaeom happened to overhear their conversation and sighed quietly. After work, Young-won went to her mother's house. Her mother had cooked a delicious spread for her. Today was the anniversary of her father's leaving. Every year on this day, Young-won visited her mother, fearing she'd be sad. Her mother said she didn't want to talk about Young-won's father anymore, calling him irresponsible. Young-won knew her mother was saying that. She took out a photo her mother kept hidden in a drawer and looked at it quietly. At the same time, Ja-sung was also drinking to drown his sorrows. The editor-in-chief sat beside him, looking worried, and advised him to try dating to see how beautiful life could be. Ja-sung hung his head sadly. It wasn't that he hadn't tried dating. It was because he had just gone through a breakup that he was in this state. Ju and Sang-soon were also drinking and eating grilled pork skin. Suddenly, a piece of pork skin splattered onto Sang-soon's face. Ju quickly grabbed a napkin and wiped it off for him. This affectionate gesture made Sang-soon's heart race. He wanted to confess his feelings to Ju right then and there, but Ju suddenly got a phone call and had to leave. She rushed off before Sang-soon could say anything. After she left, Sang-soon discovered she had forgotten her phone. He picked it up and saw a text message from a wealthy older man, offering to help Ju financially with buying a house. Sang-soon was surprised and curious about the man's connection to Ju. Meanwhile, Jaeom was at the convenience store, remembering what Jang Chan had said about Ja-sung possibly breaking up with Young-won, because he felt guilty towards him. Suddenly, Jaeom received a call from the editor-in-chief. He rushed to the bar to pick up a very drunk Ja-sung and take him home. When Ja-sung sobered up, he found Jaeom sitting in the dark. Jaeom told Ja-sung to get back together with Young-won, saying he knew Ja-sung broke up with her because of him, and Jaeom didn't want to ruin someone else's relationship. Back at the company, Jaeom decided to delete all the photos he had of Young-won. He resolved to seal away his feelings for her once more. The next day, Ja-sung went to find Young-won and asked her to get back together. But Young-won wasn't someone who could be easily swayed. She told him she didn't need him anymore and coolly walked away. Ja-sung didn't give up. He kept trying to approach Young-won, but she rejected him every time. Sang-soon was also trying to woo Ju. He brought her a hot coffee. Ju suspected he was being nice to her to get a lower interest rate on the house money he owed her, but Sang-soon denied it, saying she was overthinking things. He then brought up the fact that she should buy a new house, since she had a rich uncle willing to pay for it. Ju explained that he was just a relative who felt sorry for her after her parents passed away and wanted to help. However, after saying this, Ju looked a bit embarrassed, hinting that her relationship with the rich uncle might not be that simple. But Sang-soon believed her, thinking Ju should seize the opportunity and buy a new house instead of paying high rent like she currently was. Ju got angry, saying Sang-soon was meddling in her affairs as if he were her husband. The word, husband, made Sang-soon's heart beat faster. He excitedly imagined them as a couple. The editor-in-chief and Young-won were chatting in the company break room. The editor-in-chief expressed his happiness for Young-won, saying she was finally free from Ja-sung's oppressive ways. Young-won, embarrassed, didn't explain. Suddenly, the editor-in-chief received a call from his wife. Their daughter had been rushed to the hospital with gastritis. He frantically ran off, asking Young-won to cover his unfinished survey work. Young-won had no choice but to go survey a house with Ja-sung. In the car, Ja-sung took the opportunity to apologize to Young-won. He explained that ever since their breakup, he'd been feeling down and lifeless. But Young-won didn't want to hear it. She reminded him to keep things professional and not bring up personal matters during work hours. Ja-sung could only fall silent, dejected. When they arrived at the location, Ja-sung tried to talk to Young-won, but she deliberately ignored him. During the interview, the homeowner revealed he had bought the house for his girlfriend as an apology for breaking up with her. Ja-sung felt the homeowner's situation was very similar to his own, and thought he should also do something to apologize to Young-won. But Young-won scolded him for asking the homeowner useless questions that wouldn't help with the article. Ja-sung could only bow his head in apology. knowing Young Won hadn't forgiven him yet. Meanwhile, Sang-soon, Yui-ju, Mi-ra, and the assistant went to lunch together. After eating, Sang-soon planned to separate Mi-ra and the assistant, so he could confess his feelings to Yui-ju. But on the way, Sang-soon ran into his old friend, Dong-sik. When Dong-sik and Yui-ju looked at each other, there was an instant spark between them. Only Sang-soon, standing off to the side, was thinking about confessing to Yui-ju. Yui-ju and Sang-soon went for coffee. Just as Sang-soon was about to confess his feelings, Yui-ju asked him to set her up with Dong-sik. Sang-soon, trying to deter her, said Yui-ju wasn't his friend's type, and made some hurtful comments to get her to drop the idea. But Yui-ju got angry, thinking Sang-soon was criticizing her, and stormed off. Back at the office, Yui-ju faked a stomachache. In reality, she wanted Sang-soon to cover her work, because she had a date with Dong-sik that night. Sang-soon, believing her, agreed to help. He even anxiously went to find medicine for her. But a little while later, he received a text from Dong-sik, saying he had a date with Yui-ju that evening. Sang-soon was furious at being tricked. He told himself he should give up on liking a woman who didn't care about him, but it seemed like that would be difficult. Meanwhile, Ja-sung still hadn't given up on apologizing to Young Won. He tried his best to offer her a sincere apology, but Young Won remained indifferent. Jaeum was very worried about their situation, and blamed Jang Chan for revealing to Ja-sung that Jaeum liked Young Won. Jaeum decided he had to do something to salvage their relationship, so he asked Young Won to meet him to talk. Jaeum explained that Ja-sung hadn't actually wanted to break up with her. He had done it because he knew Jaeum also liked her, and wanted to give Jaeum a chance. After hearing this, Young Won felt a bit better. At least now she knew why Ja-sung had left her, but she still couldn't accept a man who would so easily give up on someone he loved. After returning home, Young Won thought about her mother's advice. She needed to find a man who would always be there to protect her, not someone who would easily leave. Her mother didn't want Young Won to make the same mistake she did, because her father had also abandoned her and her mother. The next day, the editor-in-chief introduced a new editor, Min-guk, who would be taking over Young Won's writing responsibilities. Ja-sung treated Min-guk with a stern attitude, which intimidated him. At lunchtime, Min-guk declined to eat with everyone, but unexpectedly, he ran into them at the restaurant. Min-guk explained he just wanted to use his lunch break to research stocks. He passionately told everyone that investing was the key to getting rich quickly. You couldn't just live on a salary. Everyone was surprised to hear Min-guk speak with such conviction, thinking he was very promising. However, it turned out Min-guk was all talk and no action. Back at the company, he constantly checked his investment charts on his phone instead of focusing on work. When the stock price dropped, Min-guk clutched his head and cried, blaming himself for not selling when the price was high. In another development, Ja-sung was about to go out when he saw a middle-aged woman standing in front of the company. Ja-sung thought she was selling newspapers or something and asked her to leave quickly. But as soon as he found out it was Young Won's mother, Ja-sung's attitude immediately changed. He even invited Young Won's mother to dine at a high-end restaurant. Young Won's mother was indeed very pleased with Ja-sung, remarking that whoever had such a good son-in-law was truly blessed. Ja-sung hoped Young Won's mother would praise him in front of her and help them get back together. But Young Won's mother instead told Ja-sung to keep their meeting a secret from Young Won. Ja-sung was disappointed, but could only nod in agreement. It seemed he had missed his chance. On the other side of things, everyone saw Yui-ju return, fuming. It turned out she had gone to lunch with Dong-sik and discovered he was a total scumbag, dating multiple women at once, even giving them nicknames like Grandma. To avoid suspicion, Yui-ju had given him a piece of her mind and angrily left. Everyone sighed at Yui-ju's failed love life, except for Sang-soon, who felt a secret thrill, knowing he still had a chance. During a meeting, while Sang-soon was presenting his ideas, Min-guk spoke up, complaining that his chair was uncomfortable and comparing it unfavorably to chairs at other companies. Ja-sung, enraged, thought Min-guk was making a dig at him and stormed out. Everyone reminded Min-guk that Ja-sung was a very frugal person who disliked throwing away things that were still usable. Young Won spoke up to ease the tension, saying that she had also found the chair uncomfortable at first, but had gotten used to it after a while. Hearing Young Won's words, Ja-sung returned to the meeting room and announced he would replace all the chairs. He then winked at Young Won, but she still acted indifferently towards him. Ja-sung was saddened that Young Won still hadn't forgiven him. While Young Won and Min-guk were looking for documents together, Min-guk suddenly screamed. This time, it wasn't because the stock price had dropped, but because he was freelancing for another magazine, and they hadn't paid him for an article that had already been published. Min-guk asked Young-won to finish writing his draft for him, while he went to sort things out with the other magazine. Young-won agreed to help Min-guk, but warned him not to let anyone find out he was working for 2 magazines at the same time. Young-won knew Min-guk was under a lot of financial pressure, which was why he was doing it. However, Ja-sung quickly discovered this, because he caught Min-guk researching stock prices in the restroom. Ja-sung condemned Min-guk and fired him on the spot. Young-won stepped in, saying she had voluntarily offered to help him. Ja-sung immediately retracted his words and didn't fire Min-guk. But then the editor-in-chief berated Young-won for helping someone else. He went on a long tirade, only stopping when Ja-sung loudly intervened. Afterwards, Min-guk apologized to Young-won and praised her for being a truly good person. He also realized that Ja-sung cherished her, probably moved by her kind personality. Young-won was flustered and didn't know how to respond. Elsewhere, Sang-soon went to apologize to Yoo-ju on Dong-sik's behalf. Yoo-ju didn't blame him, saying it was her own fault for being too trusting. Sang-soon wanted to ask Yoo-ju to a movie, but Yoo-ju declined, saying she already had plans with her rich uncle. Suddenly, the rich uncle texted Yoo-ju, saying he couldn't make it that night. Yoo-ju read the message, looking disappointed, then turned to Sang-soon and said she could go to the movies with him since her plans were cancelled. Sang-soon was surprised that a distant relative could disappoint Yoo-ju so much. Over here, Ja-sung and Min-guk were discussing a draft. Ja-sung saw Min-guk furtively looking at his phone and assumed he was checking stock prices again. Ja-sung marched over and snatched Min-guk's phone, but it turned out Min-guk was just recording their conversation, so he wouldn't forget any of Ja-sung's instructions. Later, when Min-guk was looking for a book in the archive room, Ja-sung suddenly walked in. Min-guk, terrified, quickly explained he was looking for a book, not slacking off. But it turned out Ja-sung just wanted to apologize for the earlier misunderstanding. Ja-sung advised Min-guk not to focus so much on making money and to pay more attention to the people around him. This touched Min-guk, and he declared to everyone that his new role model was Ja-sung. Min-guk wanted to introduce his sister, a famous TV MC, to Ja-sung. Everyone in the office was excited about setting them up, except for Young-won, who felt a little uncomfortable. Encouraged by everyone, Min-guk went into Ja-sung's office and showed him a picture of his sister. But Ja-sung wasn't interested, saying he didn't have time for dating. However, when he learned that Young-won also thought he and Min-guk's sister would be a good match, Ja-sung immediately confronted her. Young-won angrily retorted that they were over, and she didn't care if he met other women, then coldly walked away. Just when Young-won was feeling down, she received a call from her mother. It turned out her mother's rent had increased, and she couldn't afford it, so she wanted to borrow money from Young-won, but Young-won didn't have any money either. Her mother suggested borrowing from Ja-sung, but Young-won refused, saying she didn't want to bother her boss. Left with no other choice, Young-won sought help from an online money-saving group. She asked about her mother renting a shop for her business, and then the new owner buying the building, and forcing her mother to pay a higher rent. Someone with the username Dragon explained that if the new landlord wanted to increase the rent, he had to sign a new contract first. Otherwise, the old contract terms would still apply. After Young-won's mother heard the good news, the heavy burden on her heart was finally lifted, and she cried with joy. Young-won knew how much hardship her mother had endured, shouldering the family's responsibilities alone for so many years. This strengthened Young-won's resolve not to marry someone who would easily leave her. On the other side, Sang-soon and Wee-ju were ready to go to the movie. Sang-soon bought popcorn and drinks, but when he turned around, Wee-ju was gone. He went looking for her and found her in a corner, talking on the phone with someone. Wee-ju was telling the person on the other end not to let his wife know they were in contact. Sang-soon was stunned. He dropped the popcorn and drinks, thinking Wee-ju was having an affair with a married man. Sang-soon stepped forward and confronted Wee-ju, asking her why she would do such a thing. He couldn't believe that someone who always condemned affairs would be having one with a married man. Wee-ju, furious, explained that the rich uncle was actually her father. Sang-soon was confused. Wee-ju had previously said her parents were dead, so how was he still around? It turned out that when Wee-ju's mother was seriously ill, her father had an affair with another woman. And not long after her mother passed away, he married that woman. Wee-ju hated him so much that she always considered him dead. This was also why Wee-ju hadn't gotten married. She was afraid of meeting someone as terrible as her father. As for not wanting him to buy her a house, it was because she wanted her father to pay her rent every month. At least that way, he would remember he still had a daughter. Wee-ju cried as she told her story, and Sang-soon moved closer to comfort her. Meanwhile, Gyeom accidentally saw Ja-sung's computer screen and realized he was Dragon. The person who had always been there to comfort Young Won whenever she faced difficulties. Even when she posted about him being a terrible person for abandoning her, he still consoled her, saying she should choose what was best for herself. Jaeom revealed this to Young Won, and she immediately ran to Ja Sung's place. Seeing him having dinner with another woman, Young Won mistakenly thought he was on a date and started scolding him. Ja Sung, embarrassed, explained that the woman was just an investor for the company. Mortified, Young Won ran off, and Ja Sung chased after her. Young Won tearfully asked why he hadn't told her that he had never let go of her. Ja Sung remained silent. The misunderstanding between them was resolved, and Young Won rushed forward to hug Ja Sung tightly. Ja Sung savored the happy moments after their reconciliation, deliberately driving slowly to spend more time with Young Won. Young Won smiled and invited him to her place for dinner. Hearing this, Ja Sung switched to driving as fast as he could. When they got home, while Young Won was cooking, Ja Sung sat on the sofa, looking a bit flustered. He saw the real estate book Young Won had on the table. Knowing she had tried very hard to work with him, he also noticed a book about love next to it. Feeling overjoyed, he walked over and hugged Young Won from behind. Young Won smiled happily. From then on, the two maintained a secret romantic relationship at the company. Until one day, during a meeting, Ja Sung secretly held Young Won's hand under the table. The editor-in-chief dropped his phone, and when he bent down to pick it up, he caught a glimpse of their secret office romance. After the meeting, the editor-in-chief approached Ja Sung, saying he had discovered two people in the company were dating. Ja Sung was startled, thinking the editor-in-chief had found out about his relationship with Young Won. But unexpectedly, the couple he was referring to was Yui Ju and Sang Soon. It turned out that after Yui Ju confided in Sang Soon about her father, they had gone drinking together, and Sang Soon had walked Yui Ju home. After that day, they officially started dating. Ja Sung breathed a sigh of relief, knowing the editor-in-chief wasn't talking about him. But the editor-in-chief believed office romances were unacceptable, and said he would help Ja Sung deal with the issue. Ja Sung, flustered, could only agree. Sang Soon was in the archive room, unaware his name was being mentioned outside. He was smiling to himself, replaying the events of the previous night. Just then Yui Ju walked in, and the two started flirting. The editor-in-chief saw them coming out of the archive room, and paid close attention. He stood up and warned everyone that dating in the workplace was not allowed. Young Won, startled, argued that not all relationships ended in tragedy, but the editor-in-chief disagreed, worried the company would turn into a dating hotspot. Young Won, anxious, went to Ja Sung's office, thinking their relationship had been discovered. Ja Sung reassured her, explaining that the editor-in-chief was referring to Yui Ju and Sang Soon, not them. Young Won finally relaxed, but she still couldn't believe Yui Ju and Sang Soon were actually dating. Yui Ju and Sang Soon, also worried their relationship had been exposed, decided to act cold towards each other in front of everyone. At lunchtime, Sang Soon distributed pizza to everyone, but deliberately ignored Yui Ju, then gave her the last, largest slice. Everyone knew Sang Soon was doing this intentionally, to show his affection for Yui Ju. Young Won remembered Ja Sung doing something similar when they first started dating. The editor-in-chief complained to Ja Sung, saying he knew Sang Soon and Yui Ju were just putting on an act. Ja Sung replied that it wasn't affecting their work, so he wouldn't intervene. The editor-in-chief wondered why Ja Sung was being so lenient. Unlike his usual self, Jang Chan asked Jaeom if he was okay, knowing Young Won and Ja Sung were back together. Jaeom said he was very happy to see them happy. Suddenly, Jaeom received a text from Myra, inviting him for a meal. Jaeom turned and asked Jang Chan if he wanted to come along. Jang Chan reacted strongly, saying he hated Myra and that she wasn't a good person, then stormed off angrily. Jaeom found Jang Chan's behavior a bit strange, not understanding why he hated Myra so much. Yui Ju and Sang Soon were caught being affectionate in the archive room again, this time by the editor-in-chief. He criticized them in front of the entire company, even making them swear not to show affection in the office anymore. They had no choice but to comply. During work hours, Ja Sung made a dinner reservation at a fancy restaurant, but accidentally printed out the reservation slip. The editor-in-chief was standing next to the printer. He picked up the slip, and, assuming Sang Soon had done it, went and berated Sang Soon harshly. Ja Sung, flustered, rushed out to intervene. Sang Soon also explained he hadn't done it, but the editor-in-chief didn't believe him. Ja Sung, panicking, snatched the slip back and warned Sang Soon not to do it again. Ja Sung went into his office, feeling guilty for blaming Sang Soon. Meanwhile, Young Won, Jaeom, and Jang Chan went to survey a new house. Young Won admired the homeowner's smart choice. Instead of buying a pre-built house, she bought a small plot of land to build her own, which was more cost-effective. After the interview, Young Won stared intently at the house, hoping she could build one like it herself someday. Jang Chan mentioned that building such a house wasn't too expensive, but Young Won sadly replied that her savings had been scammed by her former landlord. Jaehyum looked at Young Won with pity, lost in thought. At lunch, Young Won unexpectedly ran into her old landlord, the one who had scammed her. The moment the landlord saw Young Won, she bolted. Young Won chased after her, a pursuit that led them from one place to another until the landlord finally tripped and fell. Young Won begged the landlord to return her deposit, but the landlord refused, saying it had happened a long time ago and she didn't want to deal with it. Back at the company, Sang-soon felt extremely frustrated after being misunderstood. However, Yui-ju told him that she had actually been thrilled when she thought he had made the reservation at that restaurant. Yui-ju had always wanted to try that restaurant. She'd heard the food was very expensive but incredibly high quality, though she'd never had the chance to go. Seeing Yui-ju's anticipation, Sang-soon lied, claiming he had made the reservation but denied it, because he didn't want the editor-in-chief to make a big deal out of it. Yui-ju was ecstatic with happiness. That evening, Young Won and Ja-sung were eating at the restaurant. Ja-sung accidentally dropped his fork and bent down to pick it up. Just then, Yui-ju and Sang-soon arrived, wondering why Young Won was there. Young Won lied, saying she was on a blind date. Ja-sung, terrified, remained hidden under the table. Yui-ju congratulated Young Won, encouraging her that she would definitely find a man better than Ja-sung. Young Won smiled awkwardly and agreed, while Ja-sung, still under the table, fumed at hearing someone speak ill of him. A restaurant staff member came to clear the table, and Ja-sung seized the opportunity to sneak out. Young Won also made an excuse to go home early. Yui-ju and Sang-soon enjoyed their sweet date. Sang-soon cut Yui-ju's steak for her. She complimented him, surprised by his thoughtfulness. Yui-ju wondered why, when he dated his ex-girlfriend, Sang-soon only went to casual places. But this time, he had brought her to a fancy restaurant. Sang-soon explained it was because Yui-ju was special to him, and hoped she wouldn't mention his ex anymore, as he only wanted to live in the present. After dinner, they went home, intending to spend a romantic night together. But unexpectedly, Sang-soon, in a flustered moment, suddenly blurted out his ex-girlfriend's name. Yui-ju was furious and immediately kicked him out of her house. Sang-soon deeply regretted it, but could do nothing as Yui-ju refused to listen to his explanation. In another development, Jang Chan was about to leave work when he saw Jaehyum diligently researching lease terms to help Young Won get her deposit back. Jang Chan didn't understand why Jaehyum still cared so much about Young Won. Jaehyum told him to mind his own business. Later, Jaehyum sent Young Won a check, pretending it was from her old landlord who had finally returned her money. Young Won was surprised, unable to believe the landlord had changed her mind. She quickly shared the good news with Yui-ju. Yui-ju was happy for Young Won, but sadly revealed that she and Sang-soon had broken up. Young Won was stunned, feeling sorry for their newly blossomed relationship. Jang Chan informed Jaehyum of the good news that Young Won had gotten her deposit back, but looking at Jaehyum's expression, Jang Chan knew the old landlord hadn't returned the money. Jaehyum himself had given it to Young Won. To celebrate getting her deposit back, Young Won specially invited Ja-sung for a lavish meal. Young Won shared that she wanted to use the money to build a small house. Ja-sung suggested buying a condo, worried that building a house herself would be too much work. Young Won misunderstood, thinking Ja-sung was looking down on her, believing she couldn't do it, and got upset with him. Ja-sung tried to apologize, but Young Won still wouldn't accept it. During a meeting, Ja-sung was about to text an apology to Young Won when the editor-in-chief suddenly spoke up, startling everyone. It turned out he was reminding Sang-soon not to text Yui-ju during the meeting. Sang-soon was also trying to apologize to Yui-ju for the previous night. Ja-sung breathed a sigh of relief. He hadn't been caught this time. When he returned to the office, Ja-sung noticed Young Won's expression was still very cold. He wrote a note intending to give it to her, but unexpectedly, the editor-in-chief brought Sang-soon's documents to Ja-sung, accidentally causing the note to fall to the ground. The editor-in-chief thought the note was Sang-soon's and reprimanded him. Sang-soon helplessly tried to explain, but the editor-in-chief still didn't believe him. Out of options, Sang-soon suggested investigating everyone's handwriting to see whose note it was. Ja-sung, hearing this, rushed out to stop them. He quickly tore up the note to avoid being discovered. Ja-sung once again felt guilty towards Sang-soon, but saw no other way. Ja-sung was begging Young Won for forgiveness in the archive room when, unfortunately, Yui-ju caught them. She was very angry, not at the fact that they were back together, but that they hadn't told her. Yui-ju felt guilty for wrongly blaming Sang-soon. She proactively went to reconcile with him, and even leaned in to kiss Sang-soon on the lips. After that, they openly displayed their affection in front of the editor-in-chief. The editor-in-chief, feeling uncomfortable, was about to stand up and criticize them when Ja-sung appeared, announcing that from now on, he would allow everyone to date within the company. Yoo-ju finally smiled at Young-won. Elsewhere, Jang Chan urged Gyeom to stop caring so much and helping Young-won, saying it would only cause him more pain. But Gyeom didn't listen. Just then, Young-won walked in and accidentally overheard their conversation. She learned that the check wasn't the deposit returned by the landlord, but money from Gyeom. Young-won felt very confused, but it turned out the check wasn't actually Gyeom's either, it was Ja-sung's. Young-won met with Ja-sung to return the money, saying she knew the deposit money was from him. Ja-sung explained that he had also been scammed out of all his money before, and felt miserable. So he didn't want her to go through that feeling. He just wanted her to be happy. Young-won understood Ja-sung's heartfelt intentions and decided to forgive him. She apologized for making him worry. Now she felt incredibly happy, knowing Ja-sung was always by her side. When they got home, they discussed the house Young-won wanted to build. Young-won said she wouldn't build it anymore because, as he had said, building a house makes a person age 10 years. Ja-sung chuckled, saying that if she wanted, he would help her only age 5 years. They smiled happily at each other. Ja-sung revealed he had decided to live in his current house. Previously, he had only considered it a temporary place, but now he felt much more attached to it and didn't want to leave. Meanwhile, Mi-ra invited Gyeom to dinner and confessed her feelings for him. Gyeom was very surprised and gently turned her down. This was truly a psychological crisis for Mi-ra. She called her assistant, crying, saying she had been rejected, but the assistant had to work overtime and couldn't come to comfort her. Jang Chan, standing nearby, overheard their conversation and decided to go comfort Mi-ra. Seeing Mi-ra crying uncontrollably, Jang Chan felt heartbroken. Mi-ra drank too much and got completely drunk. Jang Chan didn't hesitate to carry her home on his back. The next day at work, during a meeting, everyone asked Ja-sung if he had ever traveled. He embarrassedly admitted he had never traveled. He only went to different places to survey houses. Everyone felt Ja-sung was truly pitiful. He had no joy in his life. After the meeting, Young-won invited Ja-sung to go on a trip with her. Ja-sung was so thrilled that his heart pounded. Ja-sung asked Young-won if she traveled often. She replied that she hadn't traveled since graduating high school, due to her family's difficult circumstances. Her family had borrowed money to buy a condo, but it turned out to be a fraudulent contract. The condo was already occupied. After that, Young-won's family had to bear a huge debt. Creditors frequently came to demand money and vandalized their home. Young-won's father, unable to repay the debt, disappeared, leaving a letter saying he needed to go far away to earn money to pay off the debt. Ja-sung comforted Young-won, telling her not to dwell on the sad past, they would live happily in the future. When Gyeom found out the two were going on a trip, he went to congratulate Young-won and remarked on how magical the power of love was. He had never seen Ja-sung travel before. Ja-sung had even said it was a waste of money and time. Thanks to Young-won's love, Ja-sung was now much happier. Elsewhere, Yoo-ju and Sang-soon were doing yoga together. Sang-soon hadn't been home for days since he started dating Yoo-ju. He had lied to his mother, saying he had to work overtime so he could stay at Yoo-ju's place. Sang-soon said he wanted to marry Yoo-ju, but she immediately refused, saying if he mentioned it one more time, she would break up with him. Sang-soon agreed. He would also embrace non-marriage like her, and they would date each other for life. Afterwards, they spent a happy night together. Ja-sung was excitedly thinking about his upcoming trip with Young-won. Young-won, over here, was also smiling to herself. Suddenly, she received a text message with some photos of the newly surveyed house. Young-won accidentally saw a picture that included her father. She was incredibly surprised, and immediately called her mother to tell her the news. The next day, Young-won and her mother went to her father's house. From a distance, Young-won recognized him. She called out his name loudly and wanted to run and hug him, but her mother ran ahead of her. Young-won thought her mother also wanted to hug her father, but unexpectedly, she ran up to grab his hair. Young-won's mother hit her father while berating him for daring to abandon her and their daughter, leaving them to live in such misery. Young-won stepped in to stop them, and all three of them fell to the ground. Young-won's father explained why he had disappeared. Initially, he had planned to work abroad to earn money to pay off their debts, but on the boat trip there, he got injured, so the ship's captain kicked him off. Young-won suggested her father come live with the family, but he refused, saying he was too ashamed to face them. He would continue living there with the other homeless people. Young-won's mother agreed, saying he didn't deserve to come home. But Young-won didn't want that. She wanted to live with her father. Her mother, left with no other choice, finally agreed to let him return home. Young Won texted Ja Sung, asking for time off work due to an urgent matter. Ja Sung was a little sad because he couldn't discuss their travel plans with her. So he asked Sang Soon about famous tourist spots in the province they were going to visit. Sang Soon suggested some must-see places, but the editor-in-chief, standing nearby, kept interrupting him. Ja Sung took Sang Soon to a more private place to talk, not wanting to be bothered by the editor-in-chief anymore. Sang Soon's parents suddenly showed up at the company to visit him, because Sang Soon hadn't been home for many days. Sang Soon's mother had prepared a lot of delicious food for everyone. Sang Soon's parents hoped the company wouldn't assign him so much work anymore, so he could come home and rest. The editor-in-chief glanced meaningfully at Sang Soon, telling him to go home today. Ju and Sang Soon looked at each other, flustered. Sang Soon's parents said they really wanted him to get married. They wanted to hold their grandchildren, and asked Ju to introduce Sang Soon to someone she knew. Sang Soon cut his parents off, saying he didn't want to get married. His parents vehemently objected, while Ju thought to herself, knowing Sang Soon was saying that because of her, she told the editor-in-chief she would change her mind. The editor-in-chief thought Ju had opened up to the idea of marriage, but that wasn't it. She was considering breaking up with Sang Soon. After the conversation with his parents, Sang Soon clearly sensed Ju's indifference. Sang Soon asserted that he wouldn't get married, so she didn't need to worry too much about what his parents said. Ju said he should listen to his parents because they were worried about him. Meanwhile, Young Won's father had returned home, and her mother was helping him unpack his clothes. He apologized to Young Won for making her suffer. Then her father asked Young Won if she had a boyfriend. She shyly nodded and told her mother it was Ja Sung. Young Won's mother was overjoyed, praising him not only for being handsome but also very capable. Young Won showed her father a picture, but he didn't look happy. This was because previously, when her family was in debt, he and Ja Sung had worked together on a construction site. Young Won's father had borrowed money from Ja Sung, but then ran off with it without paying him back. This incident was a huge trauma for Ja Sung, causing him to lose faith in people. It was thanks to Gyom's comfort back then that he was able to overcome it and build his career to what it is today. Ja Sung went to ask Gyom for tips on taking good selfies in preparation for his upcoming trip with Young Won. Gyom was very happy to see Ja Sung so happy. Ja Sung sent the travel itinerary to Young Won, but she felt incredibly guilty because her father had scammed him. Young Won texted back saying she would enjoy the trip tomorrow, but judging by her expression, it seemed like it would be their last date. The next day, Ja Sung drove to pick her up. Young Won could see he was very cheerful, even using the keychain she had given him. Ja Sung had even planned a detailed schedule and memorized facts about the places they would visit. Seeing Ja Sung's enthusiasm, Young Won felt even more guilty. Ja Sung and Young Won arrived at a photo spot. They rented high school uniforms, which made them both reminisce about their younger days. Young Won was still a bit distracted, but she cooperated fully and smiled for Ja Sung. However, faced with the continuous travel schedule Ja Sung had arranged, Young Won felt a little tired. She suggested they go somewhere to rest, as she had something important to tell him. Meanwhile, at the company, even though it was the weekend, the editor-in-chief still went to work. He was surprised to find Sang Soon there as well. The editor-in-chief scolded Sang Soon for neglecting his work and slowing down progress because of his relationship. The editor-in-chief invited Sang Soon for a drink, but Sang Soon declined, saying he needed to finish his work quickly to go on a date with Ju. The editor-in-chief, called Ja Sung, wanted to invite him for a drink, but before he could say anything, Ja Sung directly hung up on him. Left with no other choice, the editor-in-chief had to go drinking alone. Unexpectedly, he ran into Ja Sung's secretary, Mr. Huang. The two of them sat at the same table and drank together. When it was time to pay, Secretary Huang offered to pay for the editor-in-chief, but he refused, insisting on paying himself, and even encouraged Secretary Huang to quickly earn money to escape Ja Sung. The editor-in-chief thought that with Ja Sung's stingy personality, Secretary Huang probably wasn't paid well. But unexpectedly, the owner who came to calculate the bill revealed that the restaurant they were eating at belonged to Secretary Huang. He had bought many properties and rented them out. This was one of them. The editor-in-chief was extremely surprised, silently thinking he shouldn't have insisted on paying for this meal. Sang Soon called Ju, wanting them to go on a date too, but Ju seemed to be avoiding him. Sang Soon suggested they meet in person to resolve the misunderstanding. He would go to her house. Ju, after 2 days of deliberation, had decided she would marry Sang Soon. This was because after meeting his parents before, seeing Sang-soon's father despite his age, still caring for his mother. Yui-ju thought Sang-soon would surely be a loving husband just like him. Hearing Yui-ju's confession, Sang-soon burst into tears of joy, and they hugged each other tightly. Meanwhile, Ja-sung and Young-won were sitting on a bench, gazing at a tranquil lake. Ja-sung then realized Young-won preferred quiet places like this, yet he had arranged such a packed schedule earlier. Ja-sung apologized for tiring her out, but Young-won felt she was the one who needed to apologize. She wanted to apologize on behalf of what her father had done to him. Afterwards, Ja-sung took Young-won home. Young-won wanted Ja-sung to meet her father. Ja-sung was excited, as this was his first time meeting her father. But Ja-sung had no idea that Young-won's father was the man who had scammed him years ago. Young-won's father knelt on the ground, his face full of guilt. Young-won, standing beside him, was also teary-eyed. Ja-sung didn't blame Young-won's father. He felt happy for her for finding her father. But Young-won still felt guilty, and promised to pay back all the debt to him. Then, Young-won suggested they break up. She felt she didn't deserve to love him. Although Ja-sung tried hard to explain that he had forgiven her father, Young-won couldn't stop thinking about it, because Ja-sung had once said that at the time he was scammed out of all his money. He just wanted to die. Young-won, filled with guilt, coldly insisted on breaking up, so Ja-sung wouldn't have to remember those painful memories. Finally, before leaving, Young-won said sorry and thanked Ja-sung for all the good things he had done for her. Ja-sung wanted to hold her hand back, but couldn't, only able to watch Young-won leave. Ja-sung was heartbroken to the point of tears, but could do nothing. As soon as Young-won went outside, she collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably. She didn't want to break up either. In stark contrast to Ja-sung and Young-won's sorrow, everyone else seemed to be very happy. Jang Chan and Mi-ra were dating. Sang-soon and Yui-ju were also taking wedding photos, with Gyeom personally taking them. Everyone congratulated the couple. The editor-in-chief asked what wedding gift they wanted. He would specially withdraw money from his savings to buy them a gift. Yui-ju said she wanted the editor-in-chief to officiate her wedding because she had no one else close to ask. Her mother had passed away, and her father had left with another woman. The editor-in-chief, overjoyed and proud, said he would be the youngest officiant. Sang-soon had secretly invited Yui-ju's father to meet and discuss the wedding. Yui-ju, angry, wanted to leave but was pulled back by Sang-soon, because he knew how much Yui-ju longed for her father's presence. Earlier, when she was writing wedding invitations, Sang-soon had noticed Yui-ju writing one for her father, but was hesitating whether to send it. Sang-soon comforted Yui-ju, saying her deceased mother would also want to see her and her father reunited. Yui-ju finally suppressed her pain, and gave her father the wedding invitation she had prepared. Her father took the invitation, looked at his daughter's wedding photo, and shed silent tears of happiness. Yui-ju also cried loudly. The final burden in her heart had now been lifted. As for Young-won, after breaking up with Ja-sung, she also resigned from her job. No one could contact Young-won. Ja-sung still couldn't forget her. Sometimes, he would imagine Young-won was still in his house. But the truth was, she was gone. 3 years later, during a meeting, an idea proposal caught Ja-sung's attention, because the location in the video was the place where he and Young-won had last traveled. Furthermore, the description sounded very much like Young-won's writing style. Ja-sung rushed to meet the editor who had sent the video. Ja-sung was nervous, thinking the person he would meet would be Young-won, but it turned out not to be. He was deeply disappointed. But as he stepped into the elevator to leave, Young-won brushed past Ja-sung, but he didn't realize it. When he got down to the parking lot, Ja-sung discovered his car keys were missing. At this moment, Young-won also saw Ja-sung's keychain, knew he had been there, and, panicking, wanted to run away. Afterwards, she went to the places where the two of them had last traveled together. Young-won missed Ja-sung even more. Every time she passed a location, Young-won compared it to the photo she had taken before. Reaching the final spot, Young-won felt reluctant to leave. But just as she lowered the photo, a familiar figure appeared in front of her. Ja-sung had come here too. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. Later, Young-won took Ja-sung to see the house she had built herself, feeling very proud because it was something she had always dreamed of having. The two stood in the yard, joking around happily. After everything, they had finally found their way back to each other. Everyone had a happy ending. Sang-soon and Yui-ju were enjoying their sweet married life. Jang Chan and Mi-ra were also in a happy romantic relationship. Whether big or small, tall or short, a house is always the place that shelters you every day. A home where you can lean on when you're tired. And that's where our story ends. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more great dramas. Goodbye and see you next time.